Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Thursday, October 2nd. We are live, and these pre-markets, well, they're a little green. They're a little green, being led by the one and only Nvidia, which is at $189.80. At one point, it was at $189.99. We might be breaking through 190 today, which is very, very exciting to see. There are a lot of headlines going on this morning, particularly around the data center AI space, which obviously Nvidia is the king of. And as a result, all those headlines that are not necessarily tied to Nvidia, all roads end up leading back to Nvidia. And that's why Nvidia is getting some momentum. So we'll talk about that. On top of that, in about 15 minutes, we are going to get Tesla deliveries. Tesla right here up 1.5%. It was at 467 in the pre-markets right now, just below 467. Very exciting to see what happens with Tesla. Street estimates are 447,000. Kalshi estimates, prediction markets, are at 510,000. So you can put your final bets right now in the chat of what you think it will be. I'm leaning towards higher than 470, maybe lower than 500. I think that's the safe bet. Now, granted, prediction markets have been pretty accurate this year, so above 500 would not surprise me. But if it is above anywhere near that 505, 510 level, at least in the 500 range, I do think the stock goes higher. Now, maybe some of that's baked in. We'll see what happens, but stock is getting a lot of momentum. It is having one of its best weeks of 2025. It's the fifth week in a row that Tesla has been holding above 400. And maybe today it really gets some momentum to end up getting it to go higher. I see a lot of people here kind of in the same range that I'm in, 470 to 580 or 500 is what most people are thinking of. And so we're going to see if it can get there. Nvidia gets to 5 trillion at a $203 share price, 203. So still a little bit away to get to that 5 trillion mark, but the idea that it doesn't get there by the end of this year, I mean, look, if they deliver a monster earnings and we continue to get the macro going in a good direction, maybe we will see Nvidia at 5 trillion. So we got Tesla deliveries in about 10 minutes. We're gonna get that data. As you can see right here, the pre-markets are pretty damn green. Tesla's green, Palantir's green, Robinhood continuing to hold the 140s. AMD's up 3%. I didn't even see that this morning. AMD, look at that, 169. It was at 157 last week. Google's up. Grab. We got a big headline this morning about Grab that we'll talk about. SoFi getting some recovery. That's up 2%. The S&P 500 officially hitting 670 for the first time in history. So you got the S&P 500 new all-time highs, and obviously you're seeing a lot of that momentum being led by Nvidia because that is 8% of the S&P 500. Meta's back up 1%. Salesforce is up a little bit. PayPal's up. Amazon's up. SMCI is up after going up 8% yesterday. Ethereum and Bitcoin having a great day. Look at that. Bitcoin 119. It briefly hit 119 last night. Then it kind of fell back to 117. And now we're here at 119.3, which is helping. MicroStrategy, Coinbase, all the derivative crypto companies are getting a boost from that. Circle's up 2.4%. Ethereum, that's almost at 4,400. Bitmine is at what in the pre-markets? Just under 54. I mean, for the second day of a U.S. government shutdown for the first time in about 7 years, we are seeing some pretty strong momentum going into the second day of Q4, second day of the shutdown. And as a result, it is pretty nice to see how this is all playing out. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Again, in the next 10 minutes, we will have those Tesla numbers. It might be around 9:15, so it might be 20 minutes, but we should get them pretty soon. And once we get those numbers, we'll have a lot to dissect, but we also have a lot going on in the context of the macro. Now, one thing that is important, we do have some jobs data today from independent parties like the Challenger Jobs Report that we'll talk about. We were supposed to get initial jobless claims. We're not getting that because the BLS is closed. And so as a result of the government shutdown, we are not getting some very important job data today. Tomorrow, we're supposed to get non-farm payrolls. We are also not getting that because the markets or because the government is closed. Now, one thing I found out about this morning, which is actually a little, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily going to affect the markets that much, but it's something to think about. CPI is supposed to be October 15th. Right now, the BLS is not open, aka they cannot conduct the surveys that are necessary to figure out if prices are going up or down on all the different goods and services that we use, which is the foundation for determining the consumer price index and the producer price index. So as a result, we might not get a CPI if the shutdown is not done by October 15th. But let's say the shutdown's done on October 14th and there was no data collected, the CPI might end up getting delayed. So that is something that's really important because October 17th is the FOMC decision on if they're going to cut rates or not. So there's definitely a lot to think about when we get into what this shutdown implicates. We had Scott Bessent on this morning talking more about the shutdown, so we'll get to some of his comments. But overall, That is one thing I didn't think of, which is that a lot of economic data outside of jobs data over the next 2 weeks, which is kind of necessary to keep the rate cutting cycle in place, we're not going to get. Now, the Fed likely is going to cut regardless, because if they don't have the data, they can probably assume the data is not that good, especially in the context of the job market, given we already have a lot of historical data saying that the labor market is weakening. We also have some independent party reports today that we'll talk about around the job market. So we're still probably going to get the cuts, but it is one thing to think about, given that we just don't have access to that data. Having said that, let's get into some of these headlines. Again, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Let's start off with Nebius, because this one actually is part of the reason I think Nvidia is getting some momentum. 5.8% up on the day. Nebius 122. It hit a 115 level for the first time yesterday, or 117, which was, really nice to get all-time highs. And now we are getting 122. Oh yeah, by the way, the rate cut is October 29th. I'm thinking of the December cut. October 29th is when we're going to get the FOMC decision. So maybe if the government reopens in 2 weeks, they'll have 2 weeks to collect the data, and then they'll be able to show us that data. But October 29th, the odds of a rate cut are 98.9% based on the ADP private payroll revision that we got yesterday. So, likely we're still going to get rate cuts with or without the CPI job data, but we will be getting that October 29th. All right, so what happened with Nebius? Well, Microsoft expanded the scope of their partnership today. Remember that $20 billion deal that Microsoft gave to Nebius? Well, today they signed a deal, and we got some more details from it. Microsoft is extending Nebius access to 100,000 Nvidia Blackwell chips, part of a broader $33 billion investment in neo cloud companies to strengthen AI development. CoreWeave is included in part of getting that $33 billion. The agreement also includes Nebius data centers to run large language models. So we knew that Nebius had a deal with Microsoft. That was news from 3 weeks ago. But the extent of how much data center capacity Nebius is going to get from that deal via Microsoft's GPUs, aka Nebius doesn't have to buy those GPUs, is very, very important. On top of that, yesterday, it was disclosed that Nebius is now buying land for data center expansion. And this just simply means that they're going to have more and more property to be able to build these data centers on in the first place, which again is very, very, very bullish, because if you are having all these neoclouds continue to buy more land, more compute, get the ability to get GPUs from these hyperscalers to be able to run the data center facilities that they need to do for the hyperscalers, that just means there's more money going into the entire industry. And as a result, it is very, very exciting. Nvidia right here, 189.85. I think it might have touched 190 for a second when the market opens. We'll see if it can actually get above that 190 level. But Nvidia is loving this. And as a result, they are getting some momentum. David says it's going to take them about 24 months to build a gigawatt data center, though. Yes, it will take time. That is undeniable. I think the market is pulling forward the expectations for growth simply because of the amount of deals, not to mention the CoreWeave deal. We saw $14 billion with Meta last week. That's continuing to show that demand is outstripping supply, and there are compute constraints. And as a result, you're seeing Nebius and Nvidia get some momentum. So there's a couple other deals besides the Nebius stuff that we'll talk about this morning, but the Nebius one was the main headline. And I believe that is why Nvidia continues to get more and more excitement. There was one other study by Citi, and they came out along with, so we talked about the SK Hynix deal. SK Hynix is working with OpenAI for the Stargate operation. And OpenAI said in a statement that this partnership will focus on increasing the supply of memory chips essential for next generation AI and expanding data center capacity in Korea. So you're seeing Micron shares get to an all-time high simply because of the idea that memory storage looks like it's going to be much more in demand. And that's also very good for NVIDIA simply because these memory companies are continuing to show that there is a use case for them, given they're building out the memory storage in all these GPUs. Citi Research came out yesterday, and they also raised their 2026 AI CapEx forecast from $420 to $490 billion. They're assuming through 2029, their bull case is $5.5 trillion in global CapEx, with $2.1 trillion of that happening just in 2029. So over the next 4 years, $5.5 trillion, $2.5 trillion of that $5.5 happening in 2029. I mean, you have those types of projections and estimates for what will be one of the largest tech build-outs of our lifetimes. The company that it all comes back to, NVIDIA, is going to get some momentum, which is what you're seeing right here on NVIDIA in the pre-markets. 189.88. I think it touched, 190.2? Yeah, it touched 190.2 in the pre-markets. And now we just got to see when the market opens if we can hold on to this momentum. So awesome stuff for NVIDIA. Congratulations if you own NVIDIA, if you own Nebius, if you own AMD, if you're in the data center space at all, which if you even own the S&P and the NASDAQ, you are allocated in some capacity. It seems like we are getting some momentum. to get to an all-time high. All right, real quick before we go on with a lot of other stories, FICO, that's up 17%. I know a lot of people are wondering what's happening. FICO's had a bit of a rocky year for a variety of reasons, but today they launched a direct licensing program that lets lenders access FICO scores without going through Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, which are different middlemen that are in the process of getting access to all these different quotes. Under the new model, FICO will charge either $4.95 per score plus a 33 fee at loan closing, or a flat $10 per score, roughly in line with today's bureau pricing, but without the middleman. So Equifax was down 11%, TransUnion was down 9%. FICO, I believe, now is up 17%. It was up 3% when that headline came out. Yeah, it's up 15% right here in the pre-markets. Very smart move. Obviously, the shares have been under pressure for a variety of reasons, especially along with the advent of different credit rating agencies. So FICO needed to do something a bit different. And, for a company of their size that is not as volatile as it has historically been, or this year has been the opposite of the historical volatility trend of FICO. It was something really innovative that they came up with doing. And as a result, the market is valuing that in a nice way. Now, even though they're up 14%, they're still down about 10% for the year. So the stock still has not been a big winner this year if you bought it in the beginning, but you got a chance to get it at those very, very lows back in May and April, then it's not doing too bad. So FICO right there, 1750 in the pre-markets, and that one is green. Fermi, if you picked up that IPO yesterday, you are doing pretty well. That's up about 12% in the pre-markets. I think it went public at 24. Right now it's at 36. Look, again, energy space, data center space, it's a hot space. There's a lot of investors that are excited for that momentum. This company does not have revenue yet, but in the future, if they land a couple $1 billion deals, you could probably say that justifies the market cap and valuation. The question is, do investors believe they will easily get those deals and then execute on those deals in a meaningful way? Now, Oklo is kind of showing the blueprint of just being able to really build the narrative and the story around data centers and energy. And eventually, if investors believe you can ink those deals, they're willing to give you the premium and the multiple. I think same thing's happening with Fermi. So I don't know if I would buy it after going up 50%. But do you have to sell it if you hold it? I don't think so, given it might be able to hold this momentum. And we're going to see ultimately how this ends up playing out. Thomas says, I'm up 35% on Fermi. Too bad I only have one share. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a massive, at least I didn't see anyone in the chat say they got a massive allocation. I think the most I saw was people say they got 50 or 70 shares. So not a ton of shares that were allocated, but this IPO is doing well. All right, Tesla numbers. I think we get in 1 minute. Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure at 9 a.m. we get it. I have everything loaded up. I'll be refreshing to see when they come out. 9 a.m. Okay, cool. You guys are confirming 9 a.m. So I am going to be with you guys waiting to see in about 30 seconds. What do we think? All right, numbers, put it in the chat. What do you think? I'm going to go final bet. I'm going to go 497. 497. Final bet. 497. That's my bet. That's my bet. I think it might be higher, though. I think it might be higher. Let's see. Let me put it on Tesla stock. We'll get the stock price reaction while I'm looking for the numbers. 467.90. Don't have a move in the stock yet. Don't have a move in the stock yet. Let's see. I'm on their website. Their website might be a little late, although it's usually good when it comes to this type of stuff. Got a lot of 515s, 510s. Let's see. Not out yet. All right, we're waiting, folks. We are waiting. Oh, we're green. 473. We're up. That's up 3%. Let's see. 471, busting through 470s. It has to be a decent number. What do we have? I don't see it yet. Trying to find it. Are we down? No, we're up. 475. I don't see it on their website. No one has it yet, right? I don't see any of you guys having it. I don't see it yet. It's got to be decent for the stock to be reacting like that. Rivian, by the way, did 13,200 versus the estimate of 12,955. So they beat by about 300-400. Tesla up about 3%. Looks like it's a bigger beat. 497. That's number 497. 497, folks. Wow. Did I say 494? I was close. No, did I say 497? No, what did I say? Can someone confirm what I said? I think I said 494. If I said 497, that's wild. But 497, not bad. Just below 500. Big beat against street expectations. Street said 447. Tesla comes in at 497. Estimate was 439. Some of the analysts had 447. So still, even though Kalshi was a bit high at 510, it's a big beat. Did I say 497? Bro, that's crazy. That's crazy. I'm going to be getting a call from the SEC in a minute for insider trading. That is wild, bro. That I am usually not good with those types of predictions. That is crazy. So there you go. 497. All right. Not bad. I mean, that's a good move for Tesla. I mean, I'm going to try to get the energy numbers from them as well. They don't have it on their website yet. Let me see if I can get this. 497. I don't have energy yet. SoFi just announced options level 1. SoFi just announced options level 1. I'm looking for the Tesla data, but this just came out. Anthony Noda says one of the most consistent requests we've heard from SoFi Invest members was access to options level 1, and we're thrilled to deliver on that demand by expanding access to options trading and embedding education directly into the experience. Members can now responsibly diversify their strategies and pursue their long-term financial goals with confidence, all in SoFi's app. All right, so SoFi getting some momentum right there. Tesla kind of fading a little bit. SoFi 2641, that's a big green. Options level 1 is there now. Tesla losing 470. 12.5 gigawatts of energy. 12.5 gigawatts. That's the answer. It's not on their website, but that is the answer. 12.5 gigawatts of energy in Q3. I don't know what the expectation was for energy, but I believe this is definitely a year-over-year beat, and it's a slight quarter-over-quarter beat. I got it. Okay, so 497 deliveries, 447 production, 12.5 gigawatts of energy. Again, I don't have the exact expectation for energy, but this is pretty decent compared to what we had last year. Last year for energy, Tesla did 6.9. Dude, that's a doubling. That's 100% year over year. Last year, Tesla did 6.9, and this time it's better. Mike is good. Let me know if Mike is bad. Good. So 12.5 gigawatts and 497 is what we've got on the deliveries. That is pretty damn good, and that's helping Tesla stock get some momentum. Let's get a little bit of coverage on this, and then we'll keep going from there.
Busy morning on autos, deliveries, of course, all week long, and we're getting the long-awaited Tesla numbers now for Q3. Phil Boscott. Hey, Phil.
Well, those who thought it would be a big quarter because, in part, the expiration of the EV tax credit drawing forward buyers, they were correct. 497,000 vehicles delivered in the third quarter by Tesla. Remember, these are global deliveries, but no doubt, I think over time, as we parse out the different regions and where the strength was, United States will be a big storyline there. 497,000 deliveries, by the way, is a record for any quarter for Tesla. In the quarter, they also produced 447,000 vehicles, and also energy deployments, a record quarter there, 12.5 gigawatt hours. That has been a strength for Tesla. For the year, they're now over 31 gigawatt hours of energy deployment. I think they did 36 last year, so they're clearly going to blow by that in the fourth quarter. But again, deliveries in the third quarter coming in at 497,000 vehicles. Guys, they report their Q2 or Q3 financials, after the bell on Wednesday, the 22nd. That's when we'll hear from Elon Musk. He'll obviously be talking about deliveries, but we know what the story has been for some time with him, and it'll be that day as well when it comes to autonomous AI, robotics. That's the main focus of what is pushing the Tesla shares right now.
Right. Phil, you brought us the Ford numbers yesterday where EVs were up almost 31. Now this. I mean, how are you sort of judging this pull forward given the tax credit expiration?
Well, we knew it would happen. And look, the Model 3 and Model Y both qualified for the federal EV tax credit of $7,500. So it was just a question of how many people wanted to get in on one of these vehicles before the expiration there. And remember, Tesla in August, their U.S. share, I think it was about 38%. It has been coming down, but they still dominate the U.S. market. So we shouldn't be surprised that we see the surge in deliveries of 497,000. Again, yes, that's globally. And yes, they've had challenges in China, certainly a lot of challenges in Europe. But both of those have been stabilizing to a certain extent.
So the stock likes it, 475. Let me know if audio is still a mess, guys. Should be okay right now, but let me know if it's not. Stock likes it, 475.60. I mean, with this type of momentum, I think there should be the ability for Tesla to crack through 480 today. We don't know how heavy resistance is going to be in these upper dollars to get into the 480s, but I don't see anything in this report. If you were thinking of buying Tesla going into earnings, or you were thinking of taking a chance on Tesla and you wanted to see these numbers, you got these numbers. Now, look, Q4 is not necessarily going to look exactly like this, given the EV incentive is going away. But 476 right there, just crushing through these dollars. Given the momentum we've seen over the past month now on Tesla, I would not be surprised if we break 480 today. And it really, really, really is able to get Wall Street on board. Remember, not all, I shouldn't say all, but a decent chunk, I would say about at least 7 analysts in the past 3 weeks have upgraded Tesla. And some of the highest have been around that 490, 500 range. 480 to 500 is what we're seeing from the upgrades. You got Wedbush that has them at 600. So, I mean, the idea that this can't crack 500 by the end of the year as rates come down, S&P kind of inches towards 7,000, and Tesla delivers a monster Q3. I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. S&P 500 right there, 670.63. Again, SoFi just unveiled level 1 options. This is something that people have been waiting for years. So definitely something bullish to see for that. SoFi will have their earnings on October 28th. But Tesla up 3.5%, 497,000 cars that were delivered. Yeah, what happened to all the brand damage, right? Like, now granted, Europe registration numbers are not good. It's down like 37% year over year. In all of Europe, and certain countries is doing better. But at least in the United States, as the incentive went away, people said, you know what, regardless of the brand of Tesla, I'm going to take advantage of that $7,500 EV tax credit. And if you live in a certain state like Colorado, there's even better state vehicle credits on EVs. New Jersey has like 2,000 off, but some of these other states give you like 4,000, 5,000, 7,000 back on top of the 7,500 from the federal government. So that was a tailwind. And that is why you're seeing Tesla right here up in the pre-market. Also, 12.5 gigawatts of energy. Dude, we talk about data centers and energy so much. We're going to have Mike Novogratz on at about 10:30. He is the Galaxy Digital CEO. That company is starting to transition just from a Bitcoin mining company more to a data center play as well. So with all the talk about energy, I mean, you could definitely argue that Tesla is going to be very, very relevant in a world that needs more and more energy, especially when it comes to the data center build out. And that could be one of the reasons why they're growing at 100% year over year with energy. So not bad. There you go. Tessie, 475. Now Tesla's volatile. It could lose it as soon as the market opens. We know the stock goes up and down, but this is a catalyst that I think would be more beneficial than not. And now we'll just see when the market opens what happens with Tesla. Yeah, uranium. I mean, there's so many different tailwinds for how we can conceptualize Tesla energy getting more and more momentum. So there we go. Tessie, 474, and that's what we got. We'll see when the market opens how this stock ends up playing out. We got a bunch of other headlines. Let's get to that. Amit, your thoughts on Berkshire buying out Oxy Chemicals. So that $9.7 billion acquisition did take place today officially as per the Wall Street Journal. It is not the entire company. It is a subsidiary underneath Occidental. Now, we know Buffett has a massive stake in Oxy. He's been buying Oxy for the past 5 years heavily, but they're buying the chemical version or the chemical part of Occidental for about $9.7 billion. I personally don't know if it's going to make that much of a dent in their stake in Oxy. Berkshire is this massive holding company, and they love to have businesses that they think are cheap, that are kind of those, basic businesses. They're not super tech, not super high fashion. By the way, Palantir right there, 186.90, trying to go for 187. And those businesses have great cash flow, which Berkshire loves. So I think it makes sense for them to buy this. I also think it's part of a broader bid for them to eventually just acquire Oxy and take it private. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's been rumored for many, many years. And so maybe that ends up taking place. Berkshire Hathaway right there, 496. That is actually down in the pre-markets. Year to date, Berkshire is up about 10%. So we've had a tech-focused bull market, a semiconductor data center-focused bull market. Berkshire's only real tech exposure is Apple, which is still down year to date. So Berkshire is up 10%. But you have some tech investments that have obviously outperformed and have done pretty good, given the nature of this AI data center build out. S&P 500 right there, 670.56. That is also green. I do not own any shares of Berkshire. I know a lot of people do, but I personally have not ever bought Berkshire. Okay, Grab. Let's talk about that. We have not had a segment on Grab in a while because, quite frankly, there just hasn't been a ton of news to talk about for Grab. I woke up pretty early this morning. I woke up at like 5 o'clock. I'm trying to wake up a lot earlier for the month of October. I just I don't know. I want to get. Usually I wake up at like 7ish, so I wanted to start waking up early. And as soon as I woke up, like literally like 5 minutes after I woke up, this article comes out in the Wall Street Journal. And let's just say it's a very, 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 very bullish article. So what do we have on Grab? Grab is now expanding their Grab Maps technology. You wake up at 5 a.m. and you still start the market open late. Okay, that's a good one. You do got me there. You got me there. It's always 1 or 2 minutes late. To Mongolia. So they are bringing one of the core technologies that has made their super app such a good super app to Mongolia. Now, what is the value of Grab Super App? There's a lot of different elements to it, but one of the main things is that they have completely mapped out Southeast Asia, and as a result, they're able to help drivers deliver and ride-hailing be more effective because of their mapping technologies. They are now expanding this to a country that they don't work in. So it was going to partner with Tino, a super app in Mongolia, and their technology will support Tino's taxi and delivery services. And Mongolia is more in East Asia versus Southeast Asia. And Grab is also in talks with other companies globally, including the Middle East, to offer its Grab Maps technology. So why does this matter for investors? I think 3 things. Number one, Grab is beginning to expand outside of Southeast Asia, which is super important for a company that has large ambitions. And I think if more and more companies can use this mapping technology, then that could be the beginning for the services they can offer globally. Number 2 is that it's a new revenue driver. And I think this is really important because Grab does not have good margins. If you're a Grab long-term investor, you know that they're sacrificing margins for growth, which is kind of the Amazon strategy, Uber strategy. It's pretty much the strategy of any big tech behemoth. They have to sacrifice margins in the early days to get that growth. But if this could create SaaS level margins for a revenue line, that's not a massive revenue line, but a little bit better than some of the other revenue lines they have in terms of their margins, then that could be very accretive for adjusted EBITDA, which is what at least I in my model create a multiple on when it comes to Grab. If that adjusted EBITDA number goes up or the rate of growth of that adjusted EBITDA number goes up, that means the multiple likely goes higher. And then finally, it seems like Grab is not just focused on being a super app in one region. It seems like they want to expand and they feel very confident that they can expand. So I thought this was a very, very interesting article. We've seen partnerships with OpenAI. We've seen partnerships with Alipay. We've seen partnerships with Grok, not Elon's Grok, but the other Grok. That is a AI chip company. And we see partnerships with the Thailand government the other day that came out. I mean, you're just getting more and more partnerships. I know the stock is kind of stuck at 6 from falling from 660. It is up from 470, so it's up about 20% in the past month. But I just think this is easy to accumulate at these levels. I mean, I really, really do. And I have been accumulating more and more at these levels and higher than these levels at 610, 620, because I think it eventually is going to make a move. And it's going to get re-rated once it has good earnings. That earnings is going to come from margin accretive new services. And as long as those new services start to scale, potentially across the world, that will be beneficial for Grab. So there you go. That's what you got for Grab. 601 in the pre-markets. That's 2%. Reddit right there is up 2%. Amazon breaking out a little bit, up about 0.5%. Meta as well fell to 710 yesterday. Now it's 723. But I do think the ability for Grab to expand and take over different markets is going to be one of the ways that they continue to kind of get the stock re-rated. And again, look, I have a fair value right now of at least 850. Price target's at 10. I think by the end of the year, if they can have a massive, massive earnings, which I expect them to have in Q3, that can definitely help the stock. So that's what we got going on with Grab. Netflix. So we talked about this yesterday on the market close. Unfortunately, this is continuing to be a massive problem for Netflix. The short Netflix or cancel Netflix campaign has been continuing to spend or continuing to spread as consumers continue to not spend on Netflix or cancel their spend. And it is primarily rooted through Elon. I mean, Elon had multiple tweets yesterday at like 10 p.m. at night of him talking about why you should cancel Netflix. And so I don't know what happens to Netflix. It's lost about 40 billion of market cap. Quite frankly, I don't think they're going to respond to this. They might if the stock really continues to take a hit. I mean, look, Netflix has a lot of subscribers. Even if they lost a couple million, which would not be good for the business, I think they would be able to withstand it. The question is, how bad does the problem get? And we're going to see if this ends up playing out. The reason why Elon is saying to cancel Netflix is because he thinks it is getting too woke. He also does not like that there are certain trans characters in cartoons that are being marketed to kids on the platform. And as a result, he's used his Twitter following, which is 240 million people, to voice his opinion about why you should cancel your Netflix subscription. And as a result, that one's taken a hit. So I wonder if Reed Hastings and the folks at Netflix are actually going to respond to this, if they're going to comment about this, if they're going to let this try to die out, or if this is going to become such a big issue that they're going to have to really address it. And if the analyst community, the people that actually, analyze Netflix at Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, et cetera, are they going to have to say something about this? We're going to see. Right now, it is an issue. I wonder if it continues to stay an issue, but it is creating a bit of a problem right here for Netflix. So that one right there, down about 3% on the day. ABCL, none of you guys gave me a reason why it was up yesterday. I could not find the reason. It jumped to 780 last night. Now it's back down to 620. I don't know why it's up. I have no idea. So if someone knows why it's up, let me know. I didn't see any new drug studies or anything come out, but it seems like someone knows that something good is going to happen. And that's why the stock went up from 5 to 620. But that one up in the pre-markets 4% again, down from 780. Maybe it makes a run back at 780 if it got all the way back there last night. For a good couple hours, it was chilling in the 7s. So maybe there's a world where this one continues moving on. But you got Epsilon right there at 619 in the pre-markets. Why is Mercado Libre down? That is a good question. And my question to everyone here who might know about Mercado Libre or might have heard about it is, are you buying the dip? I am thinking of it. I don't know this company well enough. In fact, I think this company is definitely a good company to do a deep dive on in the future. But this is essentially the Amazon of Latin America. And the reason they're down is because Amazon wants to be the Amazon of Latin America. So Amazon is making a bigger attempt to enter Brazil. And they're doing it in a way that Amazon loves to operate, which is getting rid of margins. So from September 30th to December 3rd, right in Black Friday season, Amazon is resetting all storage and shipping fees for fulfillment by Amazon. No logistics on charges, no commissions and reimbursements for other costs. In short, joining the Amazon marketplace will practically be free. Now, there have been some issues over the past couple of weeks in Argentina, which is definitely hurting some of the international plays as well. But I think this was the core reason, the idea that Amazon is really beginning to potentially challenge Mercado Libre's moat when it comes to logistics and fulfillment, and the infrastructure they've built around logistics and fulfillment in Latin America. Now, one thing that makes me very hesitant on Mercado Libre, and I'm sure this company is going to compound over the next 10 years and it will probably outperform the market. The part that makes me hesitant about this stock is that they don't have an AWS. So their margins are, now they do have Mercado Pay, so they have a fintech part of the business that is way better margins, but it is more of a traditional e-commerce company, and e-commerce doesn't have good margins. Amazon does not have good margins if it weren't for AWS to actually boost those margins to be a lot more accretive. So I think that's my only kind of, not red flag, but just hesitation on Mercado Libre, is that if their margins do get hit by Amazon due to competition, like their margins actually get hit, they can't replicate those margins somewhere else. But the payments part of their business is very, very strong. It's growing very fast. And so the question is, do you buy the dip off the potential threat or non-threat of Amazon entering the region? But that is the reason why Mercado Libre has been down this week. So that's what we got for Mercado Libre. Nvidia right there, 189.70. Tesla, 471. Tesla losing that 475. Maybe in 10 minutes when the market opens, it gets it back. Palantir at 186. And then Hoodie doing a great job holding on to the 140s. Vlad is in Singapore, and he's been talking in Singapore. He tweeted a couple things last night, and outside of this, which I thought was cute, the caption was Singapore. Whenever I go to Singapore, I have to take a picture like that. But he tweeted, PSA tokenization will eat the global financial system. Thank you for listening. So you got Vlad, who's pretty damn bullish on the idea that tokenization is not stopping and it's only going to get more and more aggressive. A couple quotes from his talk at the Token 2049 conference. Tokenization is a freight train and it'll eat the entire financial system. It really starts to get interesting when all of those assets, public and private, get on crypto technology. We know the SEC over the past couple of weeks has said, and the NASDAQ for that matter, they are very optimistic about tokenizing stocks on the blockchain. And they're embracing it because they understand that's where the world is going. He then says the push to make it easier to trade real world assets by linking them to blockchains will expand the addressable market from low single digit trillions to tens of trillions of dollars. Now, on top of that, going on this tokenization trend, for those that know the company called Telegram, which I would say is everybody here, it has over 1 billion users. Telegram today is launching the ability to trade tokenized stocks and ETFs in your Telegram wallet. So you will soon be able to trade Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, and the S&P 500 through a partnership with Kraken and BactFi inside of Telegram. I mean, when I saw this morning, what it really told me is investing is becoming very mainstream. The idea that a messaging platform is allowing you, I mean, what happens when WhatsApp says, hey, you can trade, I mean, what if Facebook gets into this business, right? Like if everything gets onto the blockchain and there's multiple different verticals and layers and consumer products that allow you to access the blockchain, well, then all of these different products can just find a way to get regulated from a financial perspective and then be able to offer these products on their blockchain, whether it's a Meta, theoretically, in a WhatsApp, or whether it's a Telegram. So that, to me, is just a massive tailwind for companies like Robinhood and Coinbase that are going to be pioneers in getting tokenized stocks to be global assets that people can trade. Coinbase right there up 1.79%. And it's very bullish Ethereum because a lot of that tokenization is happening on layer 2s for Ethereum. Ethereum right there, 4,400. So all of this kind of intersects within AI and blockchain, as Tom Lee's been speaking about over the past couple of weeks. But a lot of it comes down to, hey, is there a new way to set up the financial system when it comes to actually trading assets that people are going to want to trade because they might not want to hold on to their local currencies or their local dollars? And as a result, you might have more money coming into the broader markets. So that's what you've got there for Ethereum, 4,400 in the pre-markets. Robinhood right there, up about 1.5%. Henry, thank you for the super chat. Henry, for those that don't know, tweeted yesterday or super chatted yesterday that they were watching the market open in the delivery room for his daughter. He says, all right, everyone, please welcome 8 pound, 14 ounces, Monroe Isabella. I love that. Buying her a share of Hood, Palantir, Nvidia, and Tesla for her birthday. Thanks for all the coverage. Made grateful for this community. This is why we invest. Henry, congratulations. That is so special to hear. I'm very happy that she came out healthy and everything is going well. And it's kind of crazy that, you guys were listening to the market open yesterday as you were getting ready to deliver a child to the world. And now she's here. It really, really is humbling to know that the show was a part of that moment. And I do not take that for granted. So amazing, amazing stuff. Also, Isabella, I think I've said this before on the stream. It's one of my favorite names. Like, Isabella is just like a beautiful name. Bella means beautiful. And so I've always loved that name. So it's ironic you picked that name. That's such a beautiful name. And congratulations to you, Henry. Thank you for being here, sure. And congrats on buying her a share of Hood, Palantir, Nvidia, and Tesla. I mean, she will be very grateful in 18 years when those companies are going to be, well, I think they're already the most important companies in the world, but they probably will continue to be the most important companies in the world. And she'll have a dad who bought her some shares in the early days. So thank you, Henry, for being here. And congratulations to you. That is very, 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 very special. Palantir, 187.28, breaking through 187. We'll see if Palantir and Nvidia can twin again today and go for the 190 level. Grab right there at 601. Uber's up a little bit. Roblox is up a little bit. HIMS is up a bit. ASTS up another 3% after having a great day yesterday. MicroStrategy, that's at 350. That's helping out Misty, and that is also because of Bitcoin getting some momentum. CoreWeave, by the way, breaking through 140, which is also nice to see based on that $14 billion deal they had with Meta. Now let's talk macro. We got 5 minutes. Let's talk about the state of this bull market. It has been quite incredible. The S&P 500 recorded 23 all-time highs in Q3. 23 all-time highs in Q3. I mean, that is just like remarkable. It is one of the largest amount of all-time highs in a single quarter. It's the best streak since 1998. And this also aligns with the market run observed back in Q4 of 2017. The S&P 500 was up 8.5% over the past 3 months. Since 1929, after quarters with 20-plus record highs, the S&P 500 has rose 6.3% on average and advanced 63% of the time over the next 12 months. So when you have more than 20 all-time highs in a single quarter, you end up getting some more momentum about 63% of the time over the next 12 months, which makes sense as momentum continues to build on momentum. And as a result of that, you're seeing more risk appetite. So total assets under management for all leveraged equity ETFs has now exceeded 1.6 billion, the highest since September 2022. This marks one of the highest readings in years, only below the 1.8 billion peak seen 3 years ago. Now, we did see some people get out of leveraged ETFs over the past couple of weeks, particularly with the charts we got from Bloomberg around, the retail investors kind of getting out of the leveraged ETFs, which is good. But overall, AUM on leveraged equity ETFs is massive, and it looks like it is not slowing down at all. So the state of this bull market is quite incredible, and resiliency to me has been the number one thing that I think I've been excited about, to just see, even through the face of a shutdown, how resilient this market continues to be. And that is also proven through some of the data that we have right here in the paper version of the Wall Street Journal, which is, dude, I'm becoming a newspaper guy. I'm becoming a newspaper guy. Total net ETF inflows. As you can see right there, 85.5 billion has gone into the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. And the number is quite remarkable. Year to date so far, we have had 917 billion through September 29th. In 2024, ETFs added 1.1 trillion. So we've got 3 months of market action to beat the 2024 ETF inflow rate. And, it looks like that's going to happen given how much momentum we're seeing in the markets and given that we're so close to that record. But once again, it is making the argument that, hey, this is a market you don't want to fade. And, usually when people say this is a market you don't want to fade, that's when sometimes you might want to end up fading it. But there's a lot of different tailwinds coming in different areas, whether it's the Fed easing or whether it's AI CapEx not slowing down. Robinhood right there, 143 in the pre-markets. Bro, admit you're wearing glasses and you're looking at the newspaper. 30-year-old man vibes. Well, I'll be 28 in 26 days. So I'm embracing it. The part that I hate about this is that I throw away the paper, like after an hour of reading it. And it just feels like such a waste. But if they're going to give us the Wall Street Journal for free in the apartment, I'm going to go get the Wall Street Journal in the morning. I'm going to read it. But just feels like such a waste. But regardless, look, momentum is high. It is not slowing down yet. I know we look for the August dip. We didn't get it. September dip. We didn't get it. Maybe that October dip happens. Shutdowns on average don't really have the market go up or down so far. We've been strong on the shutdowns. Again, one thing I was saying in the morning is we're not going to get jobs data tomorrow. We didn't get initial jobless claims today. And we're not going to get CPI data. Most likely it's going to be delayed given the Bureau of Labor Statistics can't collect their CPI data. So it is one of those things that's going to make the market a little wonky in terms of not having the insight on data. But if this shutdown ends in a couple of days, then hopefully we end up getting that data. Even with the market not having the ability to access that data, people are excited. And it looks like money continues to find its way to get invested. On the market close today, we will get money market inflows. By the way, Chris will be on the market close today again. We're going to have Macro Thursday, so we'll talk about a bunch of different topics. But we will see if money market inflows are starting to budge and more money is leaving those 3.5% returns risk-free that you can get. And if it's entering the markets, but you're starting to see more and more people want to take risk and want to bet on some of the corporate earnings momentum that we've seen so far. So there we go. Tesla, all eyes. They beat on deliveries, 497 versus 443 expected. 12 gigawatts of energy versus 6.9 last year at the same time. And now we just got to see if that momentum can get built into the stock. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thursday, October 2nd, 9:30 a.m. The snack market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Tessie, 468. It's up 2% on the day, not breaking through that 475 level, but it is up 468 right here, up about 1.9%. Let's see. Usually early mornings, it ends up getting sold off a bit, and then you get a little bit of a rebound. This news was bullish, but the stock is also up 10% this week, so maybe it's already baked in. So we're going to have to see how this one plays out. But Tesla, 467. Robinhood, 143.60 we hit right at the open. It lasted for less than a couple of seconds, right back to 142, but we did blast off at 143.60. As soon as the market opened. Palantir right there, 187.63. Palantir trying to make its way back to 190. Wow, Nvidia, 190. Nvidia, $190. There you go. Up 1.64%. Absolutely incredible. the godfather of AI that is not slowing down. $4.628 trillion market cap. $4.628 trillion for Nvidia at 190. The stock was at 180. Stock was at 178 on Monday. Just a massive, massive move and a little bit of a re-rating because Nvidia was stuck around 160 to 175 for the past couple of weeks, especially when it tanked after earnings. And you're getting some of that momentum. S&P 670, that's a new all-time high. AMD, that's up 2%. SoFi, level 1 options is out, 2610. That's green. Google, slightly green. Grab, 606. Again, Grab had some big news today. If you can scroll back to the first 25 minutes of the show, you'll hear me talking about it. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, but I do think that announcement was strong. I don't know if it's enough to move the stock, but as a shareholder of the company, I thought the expansion to Mongolia made a lot of sense, especially with technology that they've already developed in-house for the whole of Southeast Asia. PayPal right there, that's up 1%. Salesforce is down. Amazon is down. Meta, that's up a little bit. Nebius should be cracking 120. Nebius is at 125. That is up 8% on the day. I don't own this one. I missed it, but it is such a retail darling and such a retail winner. Congratulations to everyone that's in Nebius. That is an absolute gem. And it matters because data centers are not slowing down. That's why Nvidia is getting a little bit more of a gap up. In fact, I think the Nebius deal this morning, or expansion with their partnership with Microsoft, or to get 100,000 Blackwell GPUs from Nvidia, that is only further making the bull case for Nvidia. Because if Nebius gets another deal with another hyperscaler, they're going to have to buy a couple more 100,000 GPUs. All roads end up leading back to Nvidia, and that's why it's getting some of this momentum. Applied Digital, another player in this data center space, that is up 9% on the day. CoreWeave, that is up 1.93%. IREN, how is that doing? That is up another 3.5%. Bitfarms, is that green? Bitfarms is also green, up 3.9%. CleanSpark, a lot of these companies transitioning from Bitcoin miners to data center plays, that's up 2.4%. That is green. How about Alibaba? That is, wow, Baba, another 4%. Baba over the past 5 days, if I'm not wrong, it's got to be above 20%. It's about 15%. Over the past month, it's up 37%. What a month for China and Alibaba. You're starting to see this bull market start to diversify into a lot of different sectors. Robinhood right there, 141.20, Palantir 186.18. How about Rocket Lab? What's going on there? Rocket Lab 48.79. That's up 1.7%. ASTS continuing their momentum from a couple days ago. That's up another 2.3%. SoFi, are we making a move on SoFi? 25.94, below 26. It's up a little bit. Looks like level 1 options not really making a big move in the stock, but it is still green, which is nice to see. Navitas, that's up 11%. Again, a lot of these data center plays are really catching fire based on what happened with Nvidia this morning. Intel potentially is going to be working with AMD as their next foundry customer, which would not surprise me because AMD would want to keep Trump happy, and keeping Trump happy would entail giving some of their chip production to Intel over TSM. So Intel getting a boost right there, 36 on Intel. That is a 2-year high for Intel. TSM right there is also up 1.6% along with Nvidia. Is BM&R moving? Are we moving? Wow, 55.20. Making a nice move today, dude. That is an expansion of the NAV. The NAV was 1.3 this morning. Based on this new price, the NAV, that's a little bit of an increase, 1.35. So you got a little bit of an increase, nothing too crazy. But you do have some more momentum on BM&R. Ethereum right there, 4,400, which is not too bad. Micron, 184. Again, SK Hynix and Samsung, they signed a big deal with OpenAI Stargate. Micron didn't even get the deal with Stargate, but because companies inside of the industry for memory storage got that deal, it showed the market how much demand there actually is. And that's why Micron's getting a boost as well. Went from 160 to 184. The stock is now well over 100% year to date, which is very, very exciting. Nvidia still holding 190. I'm going to check resistance on 191. I don't know why SoFi is going red. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Fermi, by the way, is up 5%, the company that IPO'd yesterday. We know that SoFi got hit from a credit delinquency report about Upstart from BTIG. BTIG came out yesterday and said, hey, we made a mistake in calculating our numbers, which allowed SoFi to go up. And now SoFi's back down. So I don't know. There's got to be something else the market is thinking of when it comes to SoFi right here. But that one is red. 191 for Nvidia. It is resistance, 57,000 shares. 57,000. NEO, with that China theme, continuing to do well. That almost hit, that hit $8 right now, just below $8. So China continuing to do well. Baidu also getting some momentum. That's up another 5% today. Nvidia, 57,000 from 191. 57,000 from 191. Tesla, all right. Tesla dip not started yet because it's up 1%, but you do have a nice red candle from 475 to 463. Now, look, Tesla's up a lot over the past month, so I don't think anyone can be too upset about it not cracking through 470. But those deliveries were really good. And hopefully that helps create some foundation going into Q3 earnings. AMD, are we breaking 170? We are very close. It broke 170 for a second. Nvidia really looks like she wants 191. She got to 190.95. Dude, if we get 200 before the next quarter, which is not going to be easy, but if we get close to it and they give a good quarter, that could be very exciting. Rocket Lab trying to get to 50. There you go, 49.59. Corey right there, 138.72. CrowdStrike, that's at 500, slightly flat on the day. Uber's down a little bit. And then HIMS is up 3.6%. Lithium Americas, again, the United States is taking a 10% equity stake. That is down 2.4%. It is up from $4. So although it's down from the 730s, it is up over the past 2 weeks. But that stock is getting a little bit of weakness. Did we cross 191? Did we cross it? Wow, we touched it. 191.05. 191.05. It's just below 191. It must have been there for literally a second as it got hit right back down. But those 57,000 shares is sliced through. And we got going. Now, again, FICO, that's up 15%. We talked about it in the morning. They are basically, now, never mind, it's up 22%. They are cutting out the middleman when it comes to a lot of the scores and the reports that they give out. And TransUnion and companies similar to that are down 10% on the day. But FICO really getting a big boost. It has not had a move like this in a while, ever since it fell like 20% in a day a couple months ago. So very nice to see for those that loaded up on that FICO dip, getting some momentum right there. S&P still at 670. Nvidia just below 190 now, trying to get back to 191. But it's at 189. BMNR, we're moving. We're moving. Okay, so here's the question. The MNAV is obviously expanding right now because Ethereum's not up as much as Bitcoin or Bitmine today. So the question is Tom Lee going to dump some shares today to be able to raise some juicy capital to buy some Ethereum? Or did he do enough of the dilution yesterday? Because if you notice yesterday when it was at 54.50, you start to see the sell-off. Maybe that was the dilution. And maybe they're done diluting for the week and they bought all the Ethereum they need, at least for this week, which means the stock might be free to run. We're going to find out with the price action today. Very close to 56. Very, very, very close. But it's having a hell of a move on the day. Nike, 76. Looks like a good result from earnings. And Nike's continuing to get some of that momentum. It was at 72 yesterday, up from 68, now moving to 76. That's up another 3.4%, which is not too bad. Yes, BMNU is 2x Bitmine. I do not own this, but if you want to be ultra leveraged Ethereum, you would go ultra leveraged Bitmine. And BMNU is one of the tickers that is doing that. 56. Wow. Not bad, dude. 7% on the day. Looks like you got some capital coming in to Bitmine. Again, Ethereum's not moving as aggressively as Bitmine, so that is a full expansion of the multiple because if their NAV is staying relatively the same from yesterday's prices, but the stock is going up, you're getting a higher multiple. And that's very nice to see. That allows them to just raise more capital in the right way. Archer, that's up 1%. GameStop's up a little bit. Verizon, that's down about 0.5%. Again, APLD, we saw that one up about 9.34% of the day. Joby's up about 1.5%. EOSE, another energy company, is that green? That is up 5% on the day. This one has had a really good past 3 months. It's been a big energy name. This one also is a very heavy retail name that I see talked about on X a lot more. And that one is getting some momentum as well. Netflix still down. Is it still down? Wow, another 2%. Another 2% on Netflix. Okay, so that one taking a hit. Do we have any macro data today? Let me see. Again, we don't have the BLS open. We still get services PMI today at 10 a.m. So we got manufacturing PMI yesterday. We still get services PMI today, I think. I'm pretty sure we still get that even if actually we might not. We'll find out at 10 a.m. We might not. We didn't get jobless claims, so we might not get that. So we'll see at 10 a.m. if we get it. And if we do, that could be market moving. If not, then that might not affect anything. BKKT, this one continues to run. Again, Mike Alfred joined the board of this company a couple weeks ago. And I think that's what really started to get the stock getting some momentum. I don't know that much about this company. I know they do a variety of things when it comes to the crypto ecosystem. 39.26 market cap right here is just under $1 billion. They're an exchange. They're a platform for payments. They do a lot of different things, but that board membership definitely got the street a bit more excited. Intel right there, that's down 1% now. Square's up about 2%. Nvidia starting to sell off at 189. Tesla's getting ready to lose all of the pump. If anyone bought at 475 in the pre-markets, they're probably a little upset right now. 461 on Tesla. Palantir's already started going red. S&P losing some of the pump as well. There's the red candle, 670, 669. Grab as well, losing at 605. Momentum down to 597. And then Hoodie, a bit of a red candle. So maybe we're seeing some news come in. I'll see if I can find anything creating a bit of red candles, or you got some people taking profits. Nebius is up 7% because of the expansion of their Microsoft deal. They now will have access to over 100,000 GPUs as per Microsoft. And that is why this one is hitting a new all-time high. All right, a little bit of a dip, 10 minutes in. A little bit of a dip. We're going to see how this market ends up playing out. In terms of jobs data, again, we don't have BLS official data. However, we did get the Challenger jobs report, and they are proposing that U.S. employers announced 54,000 layoffs in September, down 37% from August and 26% from last year. But year-to-date cuts have climbed to 946,000, the highest since 2020. Hiring remains historically weak at 204,000, the lowest year-to-date since 2009. And government cuts made up the bulk, with nearly 300,000 layoffs tied to federal downsizing. So it has been one of the worst years on record for hiring, and it has been one of the best years on record for the amount of firing at 946,000, which again goes to show the labor market probably not as strong as some think, and that is likely going to lead to more rate cuts by the end of the year. The question is, are we going to get 2 or 3 rate cuts? Maybe we end up getting 3, even though the summary of economic projections say 2. But we're not going to get any data on Friday, which might force Jay Powell to be even more bearish about the job market and potentially get more friendly around the concept of easing and getting some of these rate cuts. Tesla goes red. Wow, Tesla loses everything. Kind of predictable though, right? Like, this is what happens when you get a big move on Tesla for, I mean, look, there wasn't really a massive fundamental justification for the move from like 350 to 450 outside of the $1 trillion compensation package and Elon buying $1 billion of stock, along with the expectations that Q3 would be good because of the EV tax credit ending. But like, you wouldn't say it was like an earnings revision or anything crazy. So a good number on deliveries is probably baked in, and that's why the stock's getting hit from 470 to 450. But it would not surprise me if it recovers. It would not surprise me if this is short-term kind of algo selling off the good news, and maybe we get a little bit of a rebound. But it's also classic Tesla. It's also classic Tesla. Nvidia losing 190, did get to 191, 188.74. FICO's up 26%. That one's not. Who owns FICO? Put in the chat if you own FICO or if you bought the dip on FICO earlier this year. What was the low of FICO? Low got to 1,300. Again, this is a stock that does not make 30, 40% drawdowns, and it had one of those back in April. And not just because of the tariffs, it had actual FICO-specific issues. And now you're getting some movement to the upside back into that $1,900 range. Could Elon sell? Elon could sell some of his Tesla. I mean, there's certain parts of his shares that he's not allowed to sell, but I'm sure he has access to liquidity if he wanted to. But it wouldn't really give the best signal if he's buying $1 billion at 385 and then selling. So last time Elon really sold Tesla, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was back in 2022 to help fund the debt needed to finance the X acquisition for $44 billion. That was the last major time I think he sold. And so I don't think we've seen a major sell from him since then. Fermi's down 3%. Okay, this IPO'd yesterday. It was up 40%. So very healthy and reasonable for this one to give back some of its gains. How about Oklo? That is still up 2%. What about Quantum? D-Wave 27. That's holding on. That's up 5%. IONQ. That one is up 5.6%. And Rigetti, Quantum continues to be one of the best performing sectors this year. That's up another 6.7%. And those are green on the day. Bitcoin, are we approaching 120? Wow, dude, we haven't seen 120 in how long? Last time we were at 120 was August 14th. It's been a minute since we've seen 120, been over a month. So it would be very nice to see if we can bump up to that level. CleanSpark is up. PayPal, are we getting a move on PayPal? PayPal, 3%. That's green. It is green for PayPal. And then Meta recovering back to 727, which is good. Meta got to 710 yesterday on a bit of a dip. Robinhood still holding strong at 142. Folks, this is 3 days in a row of Robinhood holding the 140s. Very exciting to see, given 140 might actually be a form of Robinhood being normalized at that price. But we're going to have to see if it can continue maintain those levels. Rocket Lab back up to 50. There you go. Rocket Lab 49.82, just below 50. How about Lemonade today? That one is 52.50. And then Oscar, that one is at 19.50. 19.55, that's up 3.4%. So that's what you got on those names. Palantir going red now. Palantir losing some of that juice. Nvidia's still fighting. It fell all the way to 188. Now it's right back to 189. It doesn't want to easily give up the 190s. Regardless if it closed at 190 or not, it has re-rated this week into the high 180s, which is very nice because, it was stuck at 170 for so long. Coinbase right here, that one also getting some love, probably based on the tokenization announcement this morning from Telegram. It's just showing more and more TAM, along with the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing great. Coinbase right there up 6.1% on the day. The VIX continues to go down. Lyft is slightly flat. Home Depot's flat. Let's take a look at the heat map across the market today. What do we have? Pretty much green. Look at that. October 2nd, second day of Q2. Financials a little bit red. Healthcare is a little bit red. But overall, you're seeing some green. And speaking of financials, by the way, I think one thing that we all need to look at, and it's definitely one thing I will be looking at a lot more, are regional banks. Regional banks, ticker symbol KRE. So story right here in the Wall Street Journal today, really good piece on regional banks and why lower rates ultimately help regional banks versus hurt them. I mean, and you don't have to be a genius to know that lower rates help banks, but regional banks in particular have higher deposit costs than a regular bank because they're a smaller bank. And if you lower the cost of depositing, you have the ability for regional banks to expand their margins. So KRE, this one's been stuck at plus 3% year to date. Financials, XLF has done plus 9% year to date. So financials in general, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, they've had a much better year than the Truists of the world or the Zions of the world that are regional banks. But I think maybe 2026, if you get rates back down to like 3%, you should see regionals get a boost. And maybe that is something that we have to look at. Now, I've invested in a regional bank before, which is Truist. And ironically, I bought it when it was 27. My price target was 45. My price target was a year and a half ago. It is still at 45. So the best time to buy banks is really when they get on discount. And Truist was at an 11-year low. I don't know if regional banks are at a full discount, but Truist hasn't moved in a year and a half. And neither has KRE, which is leading me to believe there might be some alpha in the regionals. But I'll do some more research on that and we'll try to get some analysis on that. Yeah, Chris right there in the chat says it also lowers AOCI losses. Chris was the person who introduced me to TFC a year and a half ago. Chris, we'll probably talk about that today on the market close for the macro segment. I think maybe there's another reason to revisit the regional thesis, given the sector just hasn't done anything the whole year. And so I think that's definitely something important to look at. AppLovin, why is that down $20? Well, AppLovin is up a lot over the past couple of weeks. I don't know why it's down 3% on the day. It was at 740 at one point, opened at 710. So I'm not sure why that one's down, but maybe it's giving back some of the gains that it got over the past couple of weeks. Orbs, this is Dan Ives' company. Again, I'm not in this one, but that's up 15% or up 10% of the day. This one is very, very volatile. You got to really be able to embrace the volatility. Options have opened on this stock today. So for those that engage in options, that one is open now. But Orbs right there is up 10%. BM&R, are we still holding 56? We are back down to 55, but still up 5% of the day. Yeah, if you own BM&R, you technically own a bit of Orbs as well, which is true. Also, yeah, as James says, deregulation, that could also be massive for the regionals. So I definitely do think there's something to look at. Gabriel says, Amit, I landed a 6-figure job in Axos Bank. They will give me shares as a part of a bonus structure, but I'm so excited. Congrats, Gabriel. That is awesome. Very, very, very nice to see that you are getting a bunch of shares as a bonus compensation structure, and you got a new job. So congratulations. Is Axos Bank AX? Axos Financial, that's the ticker symbol. Market cap 4.7 billion. Yeah, this is, I would imagine, another smaller regional bank. But congratulations on the job. And hopefully those shares end up doing well. Hopefully if all the regionals do well, then the Axos shares also end up doing well. SoFi continues, speaking of banks, to just be flat, 25.74. I don't know, dude. I feel like it's an obvious buy the dip, but I don't know. Something weirder is happening with SoFi. Like, you would think this one would recover after the news of last week, or after the news of 2 days ago, but that one's not really getting that green. Navitas, that one's up 4% or more than 4%, 13% getting some love. How about software? Adobe, that one's up a little bit. And then CRM, that one's up about 1% as well. Tesla losing all the gains, 457 goes red. Nvidia still 188, and then Palantir 183.49. All right, so that is the of this market open. Let's look at the stock draft, see what we've got going on there. Matt's at 33. Matt catching up. Matt was about 7% below. Now he's only 2% below. I'm at 35.81. Rocket Lab and ASTS really helping out with that. Steve's at 6%. Tanner's at 23. And then Chris is at 10.72. So you got Amit, Matt, Tanner, Chris, and Steve for the stock draft. Wealth is down. Are people experiencing that? Is Wealth actually down today? It's definitely got to be annoying for a lot of people if you're in Wealth. S&P 669. So that's giving up 170. That one slightly down. Wow, a bunch of you guys use Wealth. Is that, hold on, is Wealth Canada? Or am I confusing them for a different? Yeah, they're a Canadian company, right? Huh. Okay. So it looks like the Canadian brokerage is taking a little bit of a hit today. FICO, wow, 30%. My goodness. Amazing move on FICO. Again, the reasoning today for FICO was primarily driven around how they're trying to get rid of the middleman when it comes to these credit reports. And it was something, as I didn't expect them to make a move like this. I don't think anyone did. But again, they have a direct licensing program that lets lenders access FICO scores without going through Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. So cutting off those stocks. Where's TransUnion today? It was down 9% in the pre-market. It is down 11% as the market opens. That is why FICO is getting some love. SoundHound, that's up 7%. Poet is up a bit. You're seeing some of those names get some green. Robna needs to expand to Canada. Yeah, they really do. The problem is Canada has so many different provinces with different financial regulations in each of those different provinces. And I think Vlad told Tanner on an interview like a year ago that that's the only reason they haven't really tried to expand. They have an office in Toronto. So, Robna knows Canada very well. It's tough when you have that many financial regulations to try to do business. So that seems to be one of the main reasons they haven't expanded. But I think Singapore expansion is still happening by end of year, which would be very, very exciting for Hood. So Vlad again was in Singapore over the past couple of days at a conference. So maybe we see more of that expansion. Duolingo, that's up 1%. TFC's up a little bit. IREM, that goes down 2.8%. SLG, that's up a bit. BABA, that's up another 5%. JD, that's up. Delta Airlines is up. Red Cat drone company, that's up 5%. Nubank's up a little bit. Lockheed Martin's up a little bit. And then Nvidia is still trying to hold on to 189. That is some of the price action we're getting in the pre-market. Richard, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Amit. I almost got to $1 million. Only need up to 70,000 more. Thank you so much. Congratulations, man. You are 70 grand away. That means you're at 930 grand. And you're closing in on that million. I've gotten a lot of notifications from a lot of people, just a bunch of people in the chat on Twitter of hitting their first million this year. And it's quite special, right? Like the bull market, yes, it is a bull market, but you still have to be invested in the right things in that bull market to be able to get to those milestones. And whether it's first 100,000, 500,000, a million, above a million, I mean, it is really, really exciting to see this change people's lives. And I know when people hear that, they're like, okay, well, now we're getting to a top if that many people are making money. But again, the narrative around that is refuted in two ways. Number one, if everyone is saying it's a top, it ends up not being a top, and everyone continues to say it's a top, which is one thing to refute the narrative. But number two is that A lot of this is not based on BS hype and emotions. A lot of this is based on company earnings and the Fed easing. The Fed easing, you don't fight the Fed. That's just like an objective law of nature. You don't fight the Fed. And then company earnings, look, every 90 days we get an update. And in about 2 weeks, we'll continue to get an update on these companies. If they continue to perform, their multiples go higher. And that's why I think people have been able to really change their lives this year as they've been invested, which is not too bad. Here's the heat map. So now heat map's going a bit more red. We were more green than red. Software is going red. Microsoft's going red. Oracle's actually up a little bit. Nvidia's still holding on. Financials are down. Real estate and utilities are down. So a little bit more red from the open. Robinhood right there, 140. Google at 245. AMD at 167. Where's Open Door? Open Door is at 807. Open Door basically flat on the day as well. Rocket Lab breaking 50. Now, the thing about some of these data center plays like an IREN, it was up 5% in the morning. Now it's down 4%. Again, I think some of these stocks have gotten to a point where they've appreciated so much. I ran 500% in the past 5 months that it might just oscillate between 45 and 50. And that's pretty healthy for any long-term investor that has seen a stock go up as much as it has. And now you think it probably deserves to chill out. So it got a bunch of price target upgrades over the past couple of weeks. It did get a couple of downgrades, but overall more positive momentum than not. And, on these big boosts, same thing we saw with Tesla, right? Tesla had a massive move over the past month. And then even with good news today, Tesla oscillating again between 450 and 465, which is not that crazy for it to consolidate there. But I wouldn't say that's bearish for any of the data center plays. Netflix, are we still dumping on Netflix? It was down 2%. Netflix down 2.6%. No one from the Netflix executive teams have come out and said anything about people mass canceling the show. I think they're just trying to let it die down and not say anything. But if this continues, they might have to come out and say something. So we're going to see. We're going to see what they end up saying. Moody's, we got a statement from them. The U.S. will be the most vulnerable to a recession late this year and early next year as the impacts of Trump's tariffs and immigration crackdown peak. Okay, so Moody's is a credit rating agency. They already downgraded the U.S. debt in May. It looks like today they're issuing a warning that we will have a massive recession due to the tariffs. I don't know if they're going to be right about that. We're going to see. But the credit rating downgrade didn't necessarily do that much. And I'm not saying it's good to have a credit rating downgrade. It's just didn't really have the impact I think Moody's thought it might have. So I don't know. It's going to have that much of an impact on them claiming tariffs will create a recession. But I guess over the next 8 months, we're going to find out. Netflix right there, still down about 2%. Nvidia, that's up 1%. S&P, that's flat. AMD, that is up 2.6. All right, we had Bessent on this morning as well, and he talked a bit more about the shutdown. Here were some of his thoughts on what's going on with the shutdown and what could be affected, including potential GDP estimates from the shutdown.
As they have passed a clean CR, the Republicans have the votes in the Senate, and he will not allow his members to come across. And what's changed since then is it's his poll numbers. So the president, Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, they're not negotiating with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're negotiating with Representative Ocasio-Cortez because she's nipping at his heels. And, so the American people are being held hostage by Chuck Schumer's poll numbers. And, we're starting to see some of the very few moderate numbers left in the Democratic Party in the Senate drift toward wanting a solution. Chuck Schumer's blocking it. When I look at Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, straight out of Brooklyn, makes me glad that I left New York in 2020. And your question about the shutdown, this is a choice that Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have made. And if they want to shut the government down, then there are ramifications.
I'm just wondering, do you think that there is it more than just bargaining then? Would the president, would Russ Vought, would they like to do some, they've already pulled back on some on some funding in some blue states for, I don't know, climate initiatives. So they're going ahead with some of these things. Do you think they'd like to finally shrink the size of the federal government and use this as the opportunity? Or are they hoping that we get things settled within the next couple of days, then that they don't have to do that?
Well, what they want is what's good for the American people, and what's good for the country is a clean CR. The Democrats want to negotiate in the, like terrorists. They want to say, we're like, this is what we have to have, and if we don't get it, we're going to close down the government. So what President Trump, Vice President Vance, and the Republican leadership want is for the Democratic side to show a little leadership. And
the Democrats want to negotiate like terrorists. That is wild, bro. That is kind of crazy. As you can see, you definitely have some people that are divided from the GOP and the Democrats in terms of how they think of the shutdown. Let's get a little bit more coverage right here on the shutdown.
September jobs report tomorrow. We already know that we're going to be going into day 3 of a shutdown. Senate is not voting today. As soon as they are going to vote is going to be on Friday afternoon. And we've got to look here at kind of what the timeline is for other key and important data that's expected to come out during this month. Now, we don't know how long a shutdown could go. But as you could see, if we get into next week, get into the week after, it starts to impact CPI, PPI. And just a note, too, that even as this data is coming out, that's only one part of it. The other thing is the collection of the data that BLS needs to do. That is also halted at this point. And I've talked to economists who have said, look, we are worried that when the data does come out for October, if there has been a shutdown for a part of this month, that could really influence the quality of the data. Now, at this point, we know that there is at least some talks right now trying to get the 8 Democrats, Senate Democrats that would be needed to join Republicans to reopen the government. It's just not clear they're going to have that tomorrow. In addition, we're keeping an eye on the White House today. Donald Trump said that he and his chief budget officer, Russ Vought, would be meeting to discuss those federal layoffs.
So Trump will be talking to some chief economic officers. Tesla right there, still red, about the proposed layoffs, which is kind of his threat to negotiate with the Democrats in terms of trying to get them to easily get rid of the shutdown, or at least come to the table to get the shutdown to end early. I am curious, what do we think about how long this shutdown is actually going to last? Let's do a poll right here in the chat. How long will we be shut down? Let's do 1 more week. 2 more weeks, 3 weeks plus, or only a few more days. What do we think? I'm going another week. I mean, I want to say 2 weeks, but then again, both sides are putting up their hardest negotiating act. Eventually, one of them will cave. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how this is decided. Because right now, the Republicans are saying that the Democrats want to give healthcare to millions of illegal immigrants. The Democrats are saying that's not exactly what we're doing. We're doing that, but we're fixing a loophole in the big, beautiful bill, which kind of denies the whole point of the big, beautiful bill, taking away some of the Medicare advantages for illegal immigrants. So there's like both sides are going to have to play it in their own way when they come to the negotiating table, and someone's going to have to give up something. But I wonder how much each side is going to take and believe their stance before one of them capitulates. And it's going to take some time. Phil says 6 weeks or longer. Wow. I don't know if it'll be that long. If it is, though, that'd be crazy. 33% of you say 1 week. 25% of you say 3 weeks plus. 6 weeks would be what? 42 days? That would be higher than the 2018 shutdown. That was 35 days. Yeah, last one was 30 plus days. Yeah, this one's gonna be something we got to keep an eye on. But look, if it lasts for freaking almost 2 months, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of data that's not collected, and it would really hurt for the bull market to be disrupted by the BLS not being able to collect the data. Like, not that the data is bad, because that's a whole nother question. The fact that we don't even have the data, I think, would make markets more unstable. And one could say, well, if the data is bad, it's better that we don't have the data. But I think that's worse, because the market is able to easily digest bad news and move on. What they're not able to digest ever is not knowing the answer, having the uncertainty. And so it would not be a good thing for us to not get that data, and hopefully we get that soon. So we're going to see. Roflo, thank you for the super chat. What is your opinion of Ondas? I have not done a lot of work on this one. ONDS. I understand it is a drone platform. Wow, 20% on the day. I mean, this is another big stock that retail have found earlier in the year. Year to date, it's up 230%. Drone company, drone stock, drone platform company. Looks like something. Well, they had earnings yesterday, right? If I'm not wrong. And that was a good earnings, but it looks like a little bit of a delayed reaction on the stock. Yeah, I have not looked that deep into this one. But obviously drones are entering into a new life cycle of momentum, given Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Department of War, has pledged his full support to a lot of drone companies. And autonomous drone warfare is becoming more and more important. Kratos also got an upgrade this morning. That's another drone company to $105, up from $75. That's up 1%. So you got a bunch of the drone names. Ondas got a deal. Contract for drone swarms. Okay. That's likely why they're getting a hit today. Yeah, ONDS places initial order for attributable drones from Rift Dynamics for distribution to U.S. defense markets. There you go. And look, the market is hot for these companies to be able to get these types of deals, which is why if you're in the space and you can get these deals, the narrative on your stock can definitely change. Didn't Camilo short Netflix? I think he did. Let me check. I think he took a short yesterday on this cancel Netflix thing. Yeah, he did. He shorted $1 million worth of it yesterday at 5 o'clock. Actually, 2 million. Camilo, baby. He is a social arb trader. He trades on the news and he trades quick based on social trends. So that short is working out so far. The question is, how low does Netflix go? It's down almost 3%. Last time it hit these levels was August 6th. So it's giving up about a month's worth of performance, 2 months worth of performance. And then the time before that was May 13th. So if it breaks this low, it's going to go back to prices we saw in early May, which is right after the Liberation Day stuff, which could get a little dicey. Could get a little dicey for Netflix. Fermi is down 10%. Again, this company IPO'd yesterday, busted up 40%. It is very normal for that to take a retracement, but you're still up if you got your shares allocated in the IPO, but down from about 35. It was 36 in the pre-market. Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of these companies, they just don't have a ton of liquidity either, right? They need more liquidity. And to get that liquidity, people need to know about the stock, and it's a new IPO. Not that many people know about it, right? So it might take some more time for that to develop a base. Nvidia right there, breaking 190 again. By the way, at 10:30, we're going to have Mike Novogratz, who is the CEO of Galaxy Digital. He'll be on the show. So very excited to ask him about the state of the crypto markets. He's been a crypto OG. I mean, he's been there as early as you can imagine, and especially in Bitcoin. But also, I'm excited to talk about Galaxy Digital's transformation from just being a Bitcoin mining company more to a data center play. And I am curious how a lot of these CEOs of these companies are thinking of the pivot, because I don't think they want to say Bitcoin mining is not relevant anymore because they believe in Bitcoin, but they're just seeing this massive opportunity for data centers in the age of AI. And I don't think they can deny that opportunity, especially if they have the mining facilities already set up that can easily be pivoted, which is exciting to see them take advantage of. So we'll get him on in about 20 minutes. Yeah, I'll ask him about the Solana ETFs as well. I know he's been bullish on Solana for a long time. So that could be another good question. CME Group said it will begin around the clock 24/7 trading for crypto futures and options in early 26 pending regulatory approval. Dude, if they allow us to trade options 24/7, that would be quite exciting. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of rules based on that, because options have all these different mechanisms of how they're traded, and a lot of, like, even 30 minutes before 4 p.m. on an expiration day, you have to close out options or else you're stuck for 30 minutes. So there's a lot of different nuances to it, but that would continue to be super bullish for Hood. First of all, more trading, and it would just get more people likely in the markets. BM&R, we were at 56. We're at 54, still up 4% on the day. When would we sleep? That is a good question. I don't know. Dude, there is something good to the market closing every day, right? Like, I know we have after hours, but there's not that much liquidity there. There is something very important to like 4 p.m. the market closes and we can all kind of relax, because I mean, if you're looking at this stuff all day, or your mind's occupied on the market, like at some point you need your mind to just take a break. And so as much as I love 24/7 trading, I wouldn't actually love if it got to the point where it's literally 24/7, because I know right now it's 24/7, or 24/5. But again, after hours, not that many people trade. So the moves up or down are not as significant. But if it was just a full market open all the time, like, I mean, I don't even think the hedge funds or the investment banks were like that. They would just be constantly working at that point. Amit will begin streaming 24/7. So the stream would just be market. Yeah, no market open, no market close. Just the market. Amit can keep us occupied 24/7. Exactly. That is the goal. That is the goal. Henry, thank you for the $50 super chat. Thank you, Amit, for your channel. Life changing for my family and me. Have a couple of fat cats at Rutgers. Next time you're in New Brunswick, what's your favorite fat sandwich from the grease trucks? I have not had a fat sandwich. I think they call them a fat Sal from those grease trucks in like 5 years. Thank you, Henry, for the super chat. But the one I used to like had like the chicken tenders and mozzarella sticks in them. I don't know what the name of it is, but I haven't had one of those sandwiches in a long time. If you're in New Brunswick in the Rutgers area, you know what I'm talking about. Those fat Sals, they are to die for. And they literally probably will kill you as well. So yes, I will look forward to getting one next time we're in New Brunswick. NVIDIA right there, 189.80, just below 190. Kyle says, I think retail investors will likely become more algorithmic and automated in their trading, either by programming themselves or services like Robinhood will help you automate your strategies. I agree with you. I think there will be an automation trading API that Robinhood, Schwab, Fidelity, all these guys are going to come out with. And it's going to be powered via AI, and it's going to allow people to have custom algos to trade. My only retort to that, though, is that if everyone has a custom AI algorithm that helps them, quote unquote, perfectly trade the market, where's the alpha coming from? Because when you have multiple trading bots against each other, I mean, they probably all know some of the same issues. So I still think there will be alpha because there's always a level of human emotion that's intertwined with the markets, but I'm curious how the algos eventually play out to become as efficient as they need to be. We got Mike Johnson. He's live right now talking about the shutdown. Let's get his thoughts, and we'll keep going from there.
Instead of loading it up with poison pills or gimmicks or tricks, we sent over a very simple continuing resolution that every single Democrat in the Senate has voted for in the past, just to keep the government open for the people, so that we could get to November 21st, 7 weeks, to allow more time for this process to play out. That is what happened. Now, the Democrats did something they've never done before. Chuck Schumer has led them all to vote against it. Everybody's been discussing this for the last few days. Why in the world would Chuck Schumer do a 180-degree turn? Because he said passionately, as recently as March of this year, on the same instrument, the same ZR, that it would be reckless and irresponsible and dangerous to close down the federal government. Why did Chuck Schumer change his tune? Everybody knows that now. He's trying to avoid a challenge from his left flank in his next Senate re-election campaign. And he wants to avoid the scrutiny that he received for doing the right thing back in March, because the far left and the base really went crazy on poor Chuck Schumer. And so he changed his tune. And now they're trying to pretend it's about something completely different. They have made a decision that they would rather give taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens than to keep the doors open for the American people, to keep vital services, veteran services, healthcare and nutrition for women, infants, and children. They would rather not pay the troops and TSA agents and Border Patrol agents. They would rather stop services of FEMA in the middle of a hurricane season than to do the right thing for partisan political purposes. It is selfish, it is reprehensible, and it is exactly the opposite of what they have all said themselves in their own words very passionately every day until now. We've been playing the greatest hits loop here on a video right outside the speaker's office for days. You've all seen it. Make them answer for that. Don't ask the Republicans what we should be doing or what we should be negotiating. I don't have anything to negotiate. I sent them in good faith exactly what they had voted for before. We did not put any Republican provisions in that. And we tried to make this very simple, in good faith, so the appropriations process of the people can continue. Now, there's been a lot of talk about, they say that we're making this up, this illegal aliens receiving taxpayer benefits. It's a talking point, they said. I want to remind you of a couple of key facts. Everybody can remember, I think, back to 2020, in the presidential debate for all the candidates on the Democrat side, you might remember famously they were asked the question, raise your hand, they said on the stage, if you believe that illegal aliens should receive health care paid for by American taxpayers. Every single one of them raised their hand, to great applause in the audience from the Democrats who were there. Those hands included Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now, what did they do? Did they follow through on that promise? Yeah, they absolutely did. Joe Biden used executive orders, and he expanded benefits, health care to illegal aliens in his 4-year term. That was an outrageous violation of the existing federal law and of the principles of good stewardship. Those resources are not meant for people who break the law and come into our country. They're meant for U.S. citizens. And so they watered down these health programs. It was terribly dangerous. So we got the majority. President Trump has returned to the Oval Office with a mandate of 75 million Americans, this big popular vote win. The House Republicans received our largest popular vote total in the history of this institution. Republicans went immediately to work. And we passed the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. And we fulfilled all the promises that we made. One of the key promises that we made, because you all know that the open border was probably the #1 issue in the election cycle, was that we would end that madness. We would cut off resources, hard-earned taxpayer dollars by American citizens, not going to reward people for breaking our law and coming over the border.
All right, so the same argument from Mike Johnson. I think every day he might end up doing a press conference until we get to some conclusion. Even JD Vance took questions yesterday from reporters trying to make his point. Bitcoin right there, very close to 120, trying to get there. Ethereum at 4,400, starting to expand. And then the Googs trying to get back to 250. Again, it's going to be back and forth between the Republicans and Democrats every single day at this point until we get to a conclusion. So far, market doesn't care. But I think the data portion of figuring out, when the government's going to open, at least for investors, is very, very important. Nvidia still holding 190 as well. Still holding 190. And that one not seeming like it wants to give it up. Amazon, this one's been flat. Dude, I think Amazon's a buy. I think Amazon's a buy. I'm already in. I'm thinking of, do I go heavier, buy some more? I'm trying to think of the bear case. I'm trying to think of like a real bear case going into Q3. And it wouldn't be about tariffs. My bear case has nothing to do with tariffs. Tariffs are, maybe it'll hurt the stock a little bit, but I don't think the market cares. I think the market cares about, can AWS grow the way we need it to grow? And I'm not fully sure how well AWS is going to be able to grow, at least in Q3. But if it stays at the same 17.5% growth rate, I don't know if the market gets super excited. Then again, I also don't think Amazon is stuck up 1% towards the end of the year. Amazon will surprise like Oracle, bro. If Amazon gives an Oracle quarter, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Amit, did you buy SoFi? No, I sold puts on SoFi. I did not buy SoFi. I sold $24 puts. So if we get to 24, I'll have some more shares. But I did not buy it yet. Oracle right there, 288. PayPal's up 1%. Amazon down. The other thing about Amazon and buying it here is like, this is kind of what happened with Google, right? It was stuck at 150 for almost 9 months. And then finally it had a move that exploded it. I don't think Amazon has to have a 40% move, but for it to have at least a 10, 15% move, it just seems not out of the question. Especially if you're, going long-term. Buy Amazon leaps. Okay, but what strike would you pick on leaps? I feel like the highest that would go out for Amazon leaps is 300. Like that is the absolute high. More likely would be around 275. At 300, I feel like is also a bit aggressive, but like 250 would be where I'm more comfortable, 275-ish. I think if you think there's a bit of outperformance on AWS, you should be able to get there. Remember, this thing was at this year to date, it was at 250. No, January, it was at, am I tripping? Did it never hit 250? Yeah, 252 or 242. I thought I hit 250. Yeah, 242. So it still hasn't even cracked 250, which is something it's going to need to be able to do. Mitt, what are your long-term grab options? I'm in 7.5 $10 call debit spreads for grab Jan 2027. So stock needs to go to 750 for me to make money. It needs to go to 10 for me to really make money. And then I have $7 calls for December 2027. If anyone's buying grab options right here, I would just go to 2028. The leaps are still relatively cheap, given they're so far out. Give yourself a good amount of time. And like the $10 leaps for Jan 2028, the $12 leaps, I don't think those are too crazy. But those are the options that I am currently on. Stripe OpenAI commerce partnership, that's probably weighing Amazon down. Yeah, Amazon has not had a really exciting AI partnership with any of these other companies, but granted, Amazon is the e-commerce player, right? So they're not going to partner with Shopify for AI commerce because they don't really need to do that. But they could partner with OpenAI for buying stuff through the chatbot, just like Shopify did. I don't think we've necessarily seen that yet. Same thing for Perplexity, Gemini, etc. Speaking of those apps, here's a screenshot from Gemini today. Ads, baby. Ads are in Gemini officially. Someone asked who in the UK offers a SIPP that you can trade options in. And then boom, IG.com, open a SIP account with the UK's best platform, was there underneath as an advertisement. So Gemini is officially rolling out ads. This is super bullish for Google because if you clicked on that link, Google gets paid as a result of you clicking on that link, even though it's a generative AI answer with a recommendation for a way to help you with your query. And boom, that's AI being monetized. By the way, ChatGPT, the information reported 2 days ago that they have hired a new head of ads, and Sam Altman is making a really big push to incorporate ads into ChatGPT, which they need to do because at this point, hundreds of millions of people use the product without paying for it, and they're never going to pay for it. So you do need some, freemium way to get monetization. But nonetheless, ads are coming to the AI products. And they're likely not going to slow down. ASTS, is that still moving? ASTS, are we above 60? Wow, 6180. Congrats to everyone in this bad boy. Taking on a life of its own, up 185% this year. I know there's a little bit of a rivalry between the Rock Lab and ASTS people, but if you own both, then, you could be happy about it. 185%, not too bad. Shout out to Chris. He at least told me about this thing back when it was 30, and I didn't. And honestly, and we're going to talk a lot more about this going into the end of the year. Like a lot of this year's performance for me has been led by just buying the strength on Robinhood. Every $10 up, just buying more versus diversifying into different plays. Nvidia, Palantir, and Robinhood have been the main components of the thesis, and Grab has picked up over the past couple months, and hopefully to end the year it helps pick up. But next year, I don't know if I can take that same strategy, bro. I don't know if I can rely on those three stocks to be the bulk of the performance this year. Like maybe you can, but I do want to look for a lot of different plays in 2026 and see, how this ends up playing out. But ASTS was a gem under 30 this year. We did a deep dive on it on the channel, and we have some really smart people in the community that took a shot on this, and it's done very, very well. But I feel like my story is similar to a lot of other people. I feel like a lot of other people kind of just like held consistent with 3 to 4 names, maybe 5 max. And because those names were winners, Robinhood right there above 143, it ended up working out. So I don't think it's that crazy to see that play out towards the end of the year. ASTS still moving. Rocket Lab getting some love above 50. Are we still there? Rocket Lab 5150. That's up 7%. Where with ASTS? How about Redwire? Is that one still moving? That one's up 5% as well. Nvidia back to 190. Google Gemini came out and corrected the post that wasn't an ad. Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. I guess Gemini trying to control the narrative right here and say we are not starting ads yet. Huh. Well, if they were to start ads, which eventually they will, then, I think whatever the screenshot looked like is probably going to be similar to what we saw. But that also, that also makes sense that they're not advertising yet. They probably want to just get a ton of users adopted to the ecosystem before they come out and start shoving ads. But I think once you're hooked on it, you're not going to care if you see an ad, right? And you're likely going to click on it if it helps. We did an Oscar deep dive, and that's also up 100%. Yeah, that is also up 100%. Oscar, again, I think this year has been so strong for so many names. Robinhood, Palantir, Rocket Lab, Oscar, Lemonade, Nebius, ASTS. I mean, so many different names. AMD stuck at 80 for so long. Google, obviously. SoFi. What are some other retail gems? AppLovin. I don't know if it's that big of a retail gem, but there's a lot of retail that were at least thinking about it back in the 300s. MicroStrategy has been kind of flat this year. Hopefully that takes off. But the sort of Ethereum crypto ecosystem, along with BM&R, right? Massive wins. I mean, dude, the fact that we could have bought BM&R for $4 the day Tom Lee went live on July, what was it? No, it was like June 30th. I mean, I was watching that live and I was like, it's whatever. Like, it was already at $8. Like it's already doubled. It went from 4 to 8. I'm not gonna, dude. I mean, if you got in that day and held on, you've done very well. QBTS, Quantum Names, Oklo, Celsius, massive. Like, this is why, when bears come out and say it's a clown market, I'm like, what are you talking about? All of these names that I just mentioned are not up because we're in a clown market. These are amazing companies that have put up incredible earnings growth. And is the Fed helping with rate cuts? Yeah, but the Fed cut rates 2 weeks ago. Like for 9 months of this market, we didn't have rate cuts. In fact, we had a 30% drawdown, which was 50 to 70% for a lot of individual names because of Liberation Day. This is not clownish to me. These are real companies putting up real earnings that are getting a multiple that is expanding with those earnings. Again, Robinhood's multiple went down from 192 to 67, even though their stock went from 39 to 140. Which is very, very, very healthy growth to see. SoFi right there, still down on the day. AMD, that's up about 2.84. Wow, hoodie's moving. I'll check 144 resistance. I'll give it a check, see what we've got. 144 would be nice to see. 10 cents away. It's very close. 9,000 shares. 9,000 shares to break above. 9,000 shares to break through 144. What is your biggest loser this year? That's a good question. I will have to look at the portfolio and let you know. But it's not Robinhood. Robinhood, baby, 144. There it is. We touched it. 144.04 broke through. There she goes. Not slowing down. Yeah, Misty. Misty is my biggest. There you go. Misty is my biggest loser. That would be, and hopefully that one recovers towards the end of the year. Not too bad, dude. Not too bad at all. 144 on hoodie. I mean, let me check 145. If she's breaking through 144, maybe 145 on the way. 40,000 shares. 40,000 shares for 145. 40,000 shares. Grab right there, 596. Amazon, that's flat. Reddit, 203. And then the S&P losing some of its gains. But still getting some love. 668.80 is what you have on the S&P. Wow, now it's moving through 144. Now it's moving 144.30. Dude, who do you think is buying? I don't think it's retail. I think it's like strategic funds that are gearing up for a big Q4 around crypto, and they want to be positioned with an asset like Robinhood. I think that's what's happening. I have not bought since 124, so I've not participated in this massive run of buying more shares. But Benny's carrying us. Yeah, bro, he must be carrying us. It's Triple V. Well, Triple V does have 4.5 million shares, so he should be liking the movement over the past couple of days. AMD, that's still up 2.5, 144.50, 144.58 is what we are moving on. Dude, see, and if we get a dip down to like 125, which would be a pretty big dip from 144, I mean, come on, bro. That's like 125. I think all of us would have been happy with last year or earlier this year if we closed there. So it's continuing to just really become one of those names. Dude, it's becoming one of those generational names. It is the best performing stock in the S&P 500 this year. We still got 3 months left. We have another quarter of execution for them to show for Q3. Earnings are on November 5th. They announced yesterday. And the idea that this is, potentially above 150 end of year isn't that crazy if the momentum can continue. Soundhound, that's up 10%, getting some love today. There you go, 1780. Again, they had a great earnings a couple weeks ago. Stock moved on earnings, then it came back down, and now it's starting to go back up. So this one I think deserves it. I don't know too much about the valuation, but I do know the earnings were really good. And that should continue getting some momentum. Rigetti, all-time highs. Okay, I don't know why Rigetti's up 20% today. If anyone knows, then let me know. But you are getting some green right there for Rigetti. That's at 35.70. Yeah, it looks like she wants 145, dude. 144.50 is what you've got right there. All right, folks, let's bring on a very special guest to the show. He has not been on this channel ever before, so this will be his market open debut. But I've played his clips from CNBC and Yahoo many times on the channel. And so I'm a big fan of him. I know a lot of you guys know him in the crypto community. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz. Mike, what's up?
Hey, good to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
I look like a priest with my Boston College sweater on.
I love it. Did you go to Boston College?
I didn't. One of my son's buddies did. He was a tight end, and so we all got the jerseys.
Very cool. We've never talked before, but I've been a big fan. I know you are an OG in crypto, and I've watched a lot of your podcasts and interviews about how you understand the crypto markets and overall how people should think philosophically about crypto. So I'm very excited for this conversation. A lot of my audience is also a fan of you. I think we'll just get started off with the first question, which is, what are the state of the crypto markets right now to you? There's a lot of nuance that we can dive into, but you got Bitcoin at 120, you got Ethereum making some new highs, you got Solana coming to life. I mean, where is crypto right now in your mind?
Remember when that movie Wolf of Wall Street, when Matt McConaughey was there and he was like,
that is my favorite movie of all time, by the way. I love that movie.
It feels like there's just an excitement rebuilding, right? So we had this huge move up. We had the Genius Act passed, which gave Ethereum, Solana a lot of move, a lot of pace. That also came with the deluge of treasury companies, these dads, including one we did, brought a ton of money into the space. What we realized was the crypto community is pretty big. It's a $4 trillion, market cap. The equity community is a lot bigger. And we brought equity investors into our space, and that really helped accelerate it. And then, the treasury companies have had their move. We've been kind of going sideways and squishy a little bit, but just in the last week, the momentum picked up again. And it's always hard to understand. There was money that came back from the FTX bankruptcy, so some of that's finding its way into the market. But I think the biggest reason is, as every day you go to bed is one day where Chairman Powell won't be the Fed governor. And every day where Trump gets a little bit, wackier, if you want to think about it, from what they did in DC with the generals to, pushing his boundaries of power and you watch these speeches, is every day we get closer to them picking a really, 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 really dovish Fed chair. Right. And that's not good for America. Let me be really clear. Independence of the Fed is really important. But if we get a really dovish Fed chair that broadly is doing Trump's bidding, Bitcoin higher, gold higher, assets higher, bad for the US, yield curve steeper. And I can just point you to, Turkey. Like, Turkey was the darling of emerging markets a while back when I was an EM trader. Right. And then, President Erdogan decided he was smarter than the central banker and wanted to both control Treasury and the central bank. And the Turkish lira, in a short period of time, got the shit kicked out of it, mostly because inflation went to 85% in Turkey. Like, people don't understand what 85% inflation does. It devours the working class, devours them. All your savings gone. And so you got to be really careful from a governance perspective, but from a market perspective, everyone knows what to do. If he picks a dove, we lean in. And that's what the market's telling us right now.
So given that's the case, and I think, objectively that is correct, as you get more dovish, we get more quantitative easing, you should lean into the risk. Are you also worried of the deficit spending and the debt spending as per the big, beautiful bill, which, yes, we're going to get a dovish Fed, which is good for risk on assets, but we're also going to get an increase in the deficit, theoretically, like naturally it will go up over time. And is Bitcoin or crypto assets still the hedge against the debasement of the US dollar?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a basket of things that are a hedge against the debasement of the dollar, right? Weirdly enough, equities are a hedge against the debasement of the dollar, right? Because they're valued in dollars. And so if the dollar is worth less, that company by definition becomes worth more. Maybe not one-to-one. I think gold and Bitcoin really are the two things you want in your portfolio. Listen, the rest of crypto will go with Bitcoin. Like, we haven't had enough time with blockchains that were fast enough and decentralized enough and trusted enough for utility to really become a big input, right? Crypto's valuation right now predominantly comes from community. And I use this example all the time. XRP is the perfect example. They're trying really hard to get utility, but man, oh man, they got a strong community. Yeah. And if you screw with them, they will literally mow you down, right? And so their community, which is the same thing Bitcoin has. What's cool about Bitcoin is its narrative is digital gold. Its use case is digital gold. It doesn't have to do anything else. Bitcoin's finished. Ethereum's got to battle Solana and the level 2s on top of Ethereum to see which blockchain really becomes the one that we use.
Right.
Right. And so that's their narrative. Right now, all the value comes from community. I'm an ETH guy. I'm a Solana guy. I'm a, Hyperliquid guy. But the reality is in the next 5 years, we're going to get, in the next 2 months, I think we're going to get a market structure bill. And that plus fast blockchains allows companies to build on them.
Right.
The moment we have that market structure bill, you're going to see your iPhone, you're going to be able to use stable coins in an Apple. Like, I don't know if that's 3 months, 9 months, or 2 years, but it's not 5 years.
I mean, Telegram announced today you can buy stocks on the blockchain inside of a platform that has 1 billion users.
Yeah. And so we're going to see this. Everyone was holding back because they were like, I don't want my business screwed with a Wells notice or worse than that, getting subpoenaed, getting arrested. All that's gone in this administration. And the moment we get this market structure bill, it's like the checkered flag. And that has the potential to overwhelm what normally is a 4-year cycle. And we're coming to the end of the 4-year cycle. So if it wasn't for this, what I think is spectacularly important combination of Genius Act and and a market structure bill that allows the biggest economy of the world and everyone else to say, we're going to play, you'd be getting ready to sell everything into December.
Yeah.
Go to the Bahamas, take your girlfriend, rent a boat, come back 18 months later.
No, it's fair. It's very fair. I want to get your quick thoughts on Ethereum. So I think you've seen a rise of ETH treasury companies, one of them led by, I think, a friend of yours as well, Tom Lee, who has kind of capitalized the interest of retail investors in this asset class. The Genius Act, very friendly to stablecoins. ETH has now the highest percentage of stablecoins, about 62% of the 300 billion market cap for stablecoins are on ETH. Very simply put, are you bullish on Ethereum?
Yeah. Listen, we did a Solana DAT, but we're also big owners of ETH. And I think, again, these are two powerful communities. No one's going to know who wins this race for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And there's not going to only be one winner. Someone's going to get first place. Someone's going to get third place. But the overall pie is going to grow so big. Listen, ETH is the OG smart contract blockchain, right? It's the OG blockchain that wanted to be the base level of trust. The most people are building on it. They have the most L2s. There's a grand debate. Solana's an L1 that's fast as heck and really is tailor-made to be the blockchain for capital markets. Are we going to go with that, or are we going to have some of that just on L2s? if anyone says they're smart enough to know, they're wrong. And so I have a diversified portfolio. I also own a lot of hyperliquid. Those guys are studs. They built the fastest growing. The only token in the top 10 that wasn't there a few years ago is hyperliquid.
Yep.
Right. And what's so unique about that is the token actually pays the dividend. Theoretically, right? They use the profits to buy back. So it feels much more like an equity investment than a community investment. There's community as part of the valuation, but you can do a discounted cash flow or a PE multiple on hype and say, And so I think you'd be really foolish to put all your eggs in one basket. We're still early in this technology. We're still early in the adoption curve. I think you got to keep Bitcoin because, like I said, it's finished. We don't need to do anything to change Bitcoin. In 10 years, it's going to be the same Bitcoin. There's something really pure about that.
Right.
The rest of the guys are in a little boxing match.
Do you think there needs to be a winner in 4 years between Solana or Ethereum, or can they both be their own winners?
I think they both can win. I really do. I don't think we can have 10 winners, but I think we can have 2, 3, maybe even 4. It's a big world, right? There are 8 billion people, and everyone just doesn't. We have the iPhone and we have the Samsung, right? 2 completely separate platforms that are both wildly popular and pretty dominant, right?
No, 100% agreed. I want to transition over to what Galaxy's been doing in the data center space. So my audience has really been excited with a lot of these traditionally poised Bitcoin mining companies, Cypher, Iren, TeraWolf, Galaxy Digital, that are now seeing their facilities have a massive use case outside of Bitcoin mining, and it's to build out these data centers for the next industrial revolution around AI and technology. Philosophically, do you think that a lot of the companies like yourself, Galaxy, are going to lean in to that demand, and that's going to be a bigger part of the business than Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, I would say it's probably half our business right now, believe it or not. We have a 800 megawatt facility that's already broadly contracted to CoreWeave that will pay us $20 to $25 billion in rent over the next 15 years.
Wow.
So do the math, per year, a giant amount of rent. And we got to build it. So in some ways, we become a real estate company. Now, once you get that lease, right? So we get the lease, you go to the banks and say, hey, I need to borrow money. You can borrow roughly 75, 80 cents on the dollar. So you got to put equity in. You got to borrow money. It's not easy to borrow. We just borrowed $1.4 billion from Deutsche Bank, and we're in the market for another $3 billion. Those banks don't like to lend you money even against the lease unless they know you. They know you're well capitalized.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be harder for some of these Bitcoin miners to actually fulfill where we're getting to. It's not been easy for us. There's only 6 or 7 buyers, right? You know who they are. It's CoreWeave standing in the middle, but it's often direct with Oracle, Meta, OpenAI, xAI, Anthropic, right? Each have different credit risks. And so once you get it done, for us, I say a prayer every night that my general contractor, Clayco, and my team in Texas is building on time and on cost. Because once it's built, and we're going to start having our first data halls generate cash in first quarter of the next year, you're a realtor. You're literally a landlord collecting rent.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful thing after having lived in a 80 vol world to be a toll taker. And so we are building that business. We've applied for another 2.7 gigawatts of power. We think we'll get something in the next, short period of time from the Texas grid. It's interesting. There's one grid in Texas, and then there's one grid for the other 49 states.
Yeah.
But we're in Texas. We love it there.
When did you realize as a CEO that kind of holy shit moment, there's a massive money opportunity for us to go after in data centers? Was it recently?
I'm in a fantasy football league with some really smart guys, and we'd had our big party. The only rule of the fantasy league is you got to come to the end of season party. And We were down in Florida, and a buddy was flying to San Fran, and I was on his plane. And he had a PhD in power and was giving me this lecture. And I'd already thought about this right when ChatGPT came out, but I hadn't done enough homework. And that triggered me into really doing the homework. And I was like, wait a minute, we already have the power.
Yeah.
And what made Helios, our site, so unique was that we had the power now. And so if you have 26 power, it's worth more than 27 power. It's worth more than 28 power. And by the time you get to 29, 30, 31, who the fuck knows, right? Like everyone gets more scared. And so in lots of ways, I don't want to call us lucky. I think we were lucky to have gotten Helios, but we were really smart at realizing there was an opportunity and running it like crazy. We laid dark fiber before we had even close to a lease, before we were in conversations, knowing that that was a necessity. Like we figured out what are they going to need to build an AI data center. And we literally ripped out all the Bitcoin mines. Luckily, we found another home to put them in, so they didn't just become trash.
Right.
But the economics are so much greater at this point for, high frequency, high compute, AI infrastructure.
So let me ask you this question. There are a lot of people, and I'm sure you're seeing this in the media as well, that are touting that AI is a giant bubble and all this data center spend is going to be worthless in a few years when there's no ROI. Given you pivoted your company in that, do you have any sense of empathy for the argument that they're making?
I worry that, so how do bubbles form? Bubbles form around ideas that are so powerful you can't say no. The internet bubble, the railroad bubble. These things changed the way we live. The internet changed everything about our life. Yet prices hit 1999. They didn't come back to that high till 2016.
Yeah.
In 1999, we were 7 years away from the iPhone, right? Think about it. From Facebook, 6 years away, right? Yeah. And so like markets get way ahead of themselves. This is such a powerful story. By definition, it has to become a bubble. All you have to decide is what portion of the bubble are we in? You could have called the bubble, and I did in 1999, December 31st. I thought, my God, it's perfect. It's going to end with Y2K. Bubbles usually end with explosions, fireworks, champagne, all excitement. And then afterwards, orgasms. You fall asleep.
Yeah.
Oh, most guys do. Like the champagne goes flat, right? The champagne goes flat. Like that's how markets end, blow off tops. And I thought 1999 would be one. And if you go back and look, it looked like it was. S&P went down 5% in the first couple of days of January, NASDAQ did. And then the NASDAQ did a 44% ripper. Yeah. Right? That's how markets end. This AI thing will end like that. I don't know if it ends like that in 3 months or in 13 months, but there are too many signs. Now, does that get me worried about my business? No, just like a little bit, but not a lot. Why? Just like the internet powered on, AI is going to change the way we live.
Right.
People are going to use that processing power. And my risk is the credit risk first of CoreWeave. But I look at the clients they have behind them. They just signed a deal with Meta. So Meta, Google, these are fortress-like balance sheets, right? Microsoft, listen, Sam Altman is more out there on thin ice, right? He's going to try to raise $1 trillion to build like that. His company won't make money for 4 years. And so he's really playing on that. These financing markets stay open for him. These other guys are machines with huge war chests. No. And so I don't think there's a tremendous amount of credit risk in the system yet. Who knows? Like, it's hard to put your mind around what's happening. So here's a frame it for you. The 800 megawatts that we're building, think of it as a brain, right? We're going to put $7 to $7.5 billion in the ground. That's Galaxy.
Right.
CoreWeave and their clients are going to probably put another 20 in there. $25 billion CapEx build. If we build out our whole campus, right, all 3.7 gigawatts, it's like $125 billion.
Yeah.
There's been $100 billion infrastructure spent in the history of America, and that's the interstate highway system. Like, we've never had CapEx spent this big, this concentrated in this short a time. Right? It took years to build the interstate highway system up, and you think about it, that's roads all over America. This is in the middle of freaking nowhere, building a brain. And so it's an experiment that hasn't ever been run. And I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. And so
I think that's fair. No one knows. And it is an experiment that all the hyperscalers are running. And as a result, your company is getting the benefit of that experiment. Do you have a hunch that if the smartest people in the world, Nadella, Elon, Altman, all these guys are going for it, then there's a better chance than not that there is going to be an ROI?
You could already see it. I mean, I told this story that's a little cheeky. I had to do a forward for Anthony Scaramucci's hedge fund book.
Yeah.
And I kept ignoring him. And he's like, dude, you're killing me. You got to just get it done. And I thought he meant a blurb. So I said, I'll do it. So I sat down and I typed out about a paragraph. And my wife's like, dude, a forward is like 2.5, 3 pages. I was like, what? And so I'm like, oh, and it's a beautiful day and Sunday in the Hamptons. And I'm like, it's going to take me, I'm not going to read the book. It's going to take me 3 hours to read the book. Then to think about it, it's going to take me, like a 3-page essay, 1,500 words. It's going to take me 2 hours to write it. I was like, it's my whole day. And instead, I took his book, I dumped it into Perplexity. I took his old book because it was a redo, dumped it in Perplexity. I had Perplexity scan me, all my speeches and my written work. And I said, write a forward for this book in my voice. And it did a brilliant job. I changed a few things. I redid it. I sent it. I said, this is just a rough draft if you guys want it or not. And they're like, oh, it's perfect. And listen, it was a reissue, so I didn't feel that guilty about it. The whole thing, start to finish, took me 32 minutes. I turned 8 hours into 32 minutes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my best work, but it was pretty damn good. Sorry, Anthony.
Does he know about this, or is he finding out for the first time?
I finally told him. He laughed.
Well, it increased your productivity for that day, and you would imagine in the enterprise, obviously, something like that would improve margin.
And you're seeing that at every company, right? We're doing it at Galaxy. We have a whole team that's now dedicated to trying to make sure every little group and every person uses AI. And of course, what do you see? The young people are awesome at it, and the old people kind of suck.
That's fair. That's fair. Mike, one more question for you before we get into some rapid fire. There is Mike's Twitter right there in the chat, so you guys can check that out. Thank you again for taking the time. Energy. What is going to be the energy source for these data centers? Nuclear, gas, solar? What are you thinking around that?
I think it's going to be all of the above. Is coming, even with the accelerating, trying to kick out regulatory barriers, and it takes a while, and so it's not going to be the savior in the next 3 years. The savior in the next 3 years is going to be what we already have built, right? Which is, in some ways, gas and solar is where most of this stuff's happening. If you think about like Helios, you go down there, there's a tremendous amount of wind because they built a lot of wind in the middle of nowhere, and a tremendous amount of solar, and then it's gas. And I think that'll probably be it. To take it to that next level, we do need a lot of power infrastructure. And that's probably going to be the bottleneck.
Right.
That will slow things down. It just takes longer than you think to build this stuff. And the idea that you're going to build behind the meter, so I'm going to stay off the grid, because listen, the problem with this, and we're wrestling with this in Texas, is ERCOT has to say, if I give Galaxy this and Starlink this and all these guys, Stargate this, is it going to crush my grid? So they do all these grid stability studies. At one point, right, the grid only has so much capacity. So then people say, I'm going to build a power station just for the data center. None of the data centers want that. It's too much risk to have downtime. And so you need to be at least hybrid linked into the system. And I just think it's going to take a lot longer for some of these big projects to get built. That's just, again, I shouldn't say I'm not an expert. I'm at least a dilettante, but I'm not really a power expert. And we're becoming, like in some ways we had an easy job. Once we realized we had a great asset, it's maximize the asset.
Right.
And we knew it was special and get more assets that look like it.
Yeah.
And I think we thought we've looked at a lot of other things, and I'm like, wow, that's a more complicated decision to go out and build power.
It's kind of crazy because you're sitting on this asset. You have massive demand for that asset. It's something that can print for you more than Bitcoin mining in the short term. But now you've got this power problem. And I think that's what's giving rise to a lot of these other companies that are focused on batteries and solar and nuclear that are trying to figure out how to solve this next decade of CapEx build.
Yeah. And listen, and some of them are going to get it right and some are going to get it wrong. We are going to need more power. That's obvious. And then you look at what China is doing versus us, and we look like literally like sitting ducks. Like China has gotten way ahead in the power game. Way ahead. And so the other thing I would leave you with is when you're in DC, certainly in the White House, but also in both sides of Congress. And I don't love this, but it's true. Everyone sees this as like the space race with China, like the war for civilization. And because it is, quote, existential, I'm not sure how existential it is actually, but everyone believes it's existential. Like, this is not going away. It's got so much regulatory momentum. And I'm telling you, the government will lend the money soon enough if people feel like we're going to lose.
Right.
And so there's more juice in this lemon.
That is fair. All right, Mike, real quick, 4 rapid fire questions. Answer them however you like. Chainlink, thoughts on this crypto in general?
And so you said Chainlink?
Yeah.
So I had lunch with the CEO, 2 months ago. He was getting very organized around getting into DC. Bridges, oracles, the whole infrastructure piece, we're moving into that era where crypto becomes plumbing, right? What crypto has become narrative. And the funny part is Chainlink's value comes from the Link Marines, right? The Link Marines are the community. And I asked the CEO, I said, do you even know who these guys are? And he was like, to tell you the truth, I don't, but I love them. Right? And so we have this very weird industry where there's technology being built, there's real use case being built. You got a CEO who's trying to figure out how to get in to this merging of TradeFi and DeFi, who is brilliant. And yet the value comes from the narrative still. And I think what we're going to see is if he indeed becomes key infrastructure for all the banks, you're going to see that narrative accelerate. And if not, it'll go sideways. And I'm not smart enough to know what plumber's going to win, but we are going from the era of storyteller to the era of plumber. I don't think we're going there in a year where someone would shoot me and put a new CEO in the case because I'm a storyteller, not a plumber. But we for crypto to matter, it has to be plumbing.
It has to be infrastructure. I agree.
Yeah.
Bitcoin price prediction, end of year.
147.5.
Okay. I like the vibes-based prediction on that. Makes sense. Will Michael Saylor be the richest man in history one day?
No. I think Michael Saylor will be rich, but like Michael's done amazing things for the Bitcoin community. So hats off. I don't wear hats because I'm bald. But each time he raises capital, right, he's diluting his ownership stake, and I don't know what he owns in of MicroStrategy. I bet you could probably pull it up on your Bloomberg, 8 or 10%. And so, Elon Musk is already worth $500 billion. That would mean MicroStrategy would be worth $5 trillion. It's just that seems insanity. And so I think Michael Saylor is going to be wealthy for the rest of his life. And I think he's done a ton for our community, but like he just doesn't have a big enough stack when you compare it to where he's starting and what it would need.
Okay. Last question for you, Mr. Novogratz. Again, thank you for joining the show. His Twitter right there in the description. Audience really enjoyed you being on. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, that's a great question. I love movies. I got a bunch. My favorite movie, I used to always say The Godfather.
It's a classic.
Because it's just such a good movie.
Such a good movie.
I tell you, I'm a kind of cheesy guy as well. I love Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann. You haven't seen Moulin Rouge? It is so good. A movie I watched this weekend that everybody should watch because, you know, there's this debate right now. Are we slipping into fascism or authoritarianism? There's a movie called Judgment at Nuremberg. And Spencer Tracy, right, one of the great stars of his time. William Shatner, Captain Kirk is in it as a really young guy. Great cast. Judy Garland, you know, who played Dorothy. And it's about the trials in Nuremberg. And there are scenes in it that will haunt you, that will make you think, like, what the heck's going on here?
Right.
How do we have, you know, a police, you know, a federalized police force in cities? How do we, you know, like we're in scary times in some ways where our democracy is at least in debate. And watch that movie and think about it because it's worth it.
So favorite's The Godfather. That's what you would go for.
Yeah. Godfather's still my favorite.
Okay.
One day I'm going to learn to answer questions tersely.
Oh, we love it. We love it. This is awesome. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it so much. You're welcome again anytime on the show, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. All right. There we go. We got Mr. Novogratz on the show. That was awesome. That was cool. That was fun. I really enjoyed hearing him talk about the data center pivot because I've been so curious about like how these companies are just flipping the script. And he pretty much said, dude, we had the asset, there was demand, and we decided to flip. And as a result, they're now going to be printing potentially billions off 2.7 gigawatts of land that they have. And if so, then that could be very, very good for Galaxy. Robinhood did touch 145 while we were talking. Got a red candle, not just on Robinhood, but across the market. Tesla, unfortunately, losing all of its hype today, down 2%. Maybe below 550. Grab is still green, but that's down to 593. Google's down, SoFi's down, AMD is down. Robinhood's still holding 141, but down from 145. And then Nvidia just below 190 at 189. So not too bad. Not too bad. Also, boy didn't lie this time, okay? He mentioned some movie from 1961. I don't know what this movie was. I've never heard of Judgment at Nuremberg before. So, you know, your boy... Also, The Godfather, I can say it's a classic without watching it, okay? So all of you guys saying, oh, Amit, there he goes again. You're allowed to say a movie's a classic without watching it. That's not fake. That's not like, that's not intellectually dishonest. Like The Godfather is a classic. You don't have to watch him. You can just tell from the cultural zeitgeist that people know The Godfather is a classic. You don't have to own a stock to say it's a good company, right? So same logic here. So I think we did a good job this time. I think we did a good job. There you go. All right. So that's what we got. That was the Mike Novogratz interview. Dude, if he has that High School Musical, I would have. I need to be on an interview one day where someone is asking me about the markets and then they hit me with what's your favorite movie, and then I need to bust out a High School Musical just to see the reaction. Just to see the reaction of what people would say. But there you go. All right. What headlines were going on while we were talking? If anything, I think the key takeaway from that interview is that if you're thinking of investing in data center plays, it was nice to just hear from one of those data center CEOs or new data center CEOs who used to be a Bitcoin mining CEO that is embracing the pivot and believes that the pivot is going to be very productive to deal with what's going on with AI. Let's see what other headlines we have. Gold is down a bit. Okay, finally we're getting some gold weakness, dude. We haven't seen gold weakness in a minute. Gold down to 38.30, which is not really weak, but it's down 1% on the day. Still up year to date, 45. When's the last time gold was up 45%, bro? My goodness. VIX is up 3%. All right, so that explains why Robinhood got hit. Volatility starting to bounce up. Now it's up 2%, just under 17. For the volatility index. Also, for everyone saying that Wolf of Wall Street, Amit never watched it, you definitely have not been watching the channel for long enough, because like that is one of the only movies I have watched. So when he said it, I was just so happy because I could relate to what he was saying. So yes, maybe some other movies I'm not in, but Wolf of Wall Street, Interstellar, Dark Knight, and Inception. Anyone brings those up, I can talk about them. Okay? I can talk about them. Robin right there, 142.35. I don't think we have any other crazy headlines. You got Russia saying some stuff. Kremlin spokesperson said we are not closer to peace after the Alaska summit. Yeah, we already knew that. He says main factor complicating peace is Europe. Okay, that's not going to necessarily change anything. Perplexity is making its 200-month browser free for everyone, according to Business Insider. I mean, this looks like it was bound to happen. I don't know how many people are willing to pay $200 a month for a browser. So that's not crazy to imagine. But outside of that, nothing else crazy in terms of headlines. We listened to Speaker Johnson already again. The main argument from him was pointing the finger at the Democrats. So they will continue to go back and forth until we get some negotiation on the shutdown. Why not Tenants? I actually haven't watched that. I know that's another Nolan film, but that's the one of the Nolans that I never watched. I did watch Big Short. That is one of my favorite movies as well. Wolf of Wall Street is like legit one of my favorite movies. It's top 3 for sure. We did get some upgrades. Yeah, Morgan Stanley raised Google to 270, but we had another one this morning raise Google. Where is it? Right here. Jefferies raised them to 285. While Gemini is not the obvious AI chatbot winner today, we believe it is strongly positioned to become one of the following leading AI answer engines with a single chat interface that is unified and has clear intent, merging AI overviews, AI mode, and AI search with intelligent self-routing applied. Google would own a high-value funnel that brings a customer from discovery all the way to making the purchase decision. So again, Google is not putting ads in Gemini yet. They came out today and said the screenshots going around are not necessarily advertisements. But Jefferies, Morgan Stanley, Goldman, they all believe eventually those ads will be in place. And when Google owns the chat interface that has all your data, they should obviously be able to monetize it with ads. And that is the bull case, at least from an advertising perspective for the Googs. What's going on with Microsoft? Are we down today? We are 511, down 1.4. I think we're red across the heat map. Yeah, we're more red than we were in the morning. A lot of big tech giving up their gains besides Nvidia. That one has been strong this entire week. Everything else has been kind of financials, healthcare, consumer defensives, industrials, and big tech outside of Nvidia and Apple. Apple's up just a little bit. Meta's also recovering a little bit from yesterday. Those are all red. Amit, do you think Hood will beat earnings? Yeah, I think so. The street has them at 1.15 billion. I think Hood beats earnings. It'll be hard to imagine they don't. I think momentum has been too strong in Q3. So yeah, even if it's a slight beat, I think we'll beat. The stocks obviously brought a lot of growth pull forward, and it's very exciting because if it can normalize at this multiple, if Robinhood can just keep growing into it, then that's going to be very good. But yeah, I mean, if we go down 10% on earnings and we end the year at 130, 125, like I'm not going to be that upset. I just won't, because it's been an amazing year. But if momentum continues, could we see 150? I mean, it is very possible. They just got to continue to put up the growth. Mid, are we buying more Grab? Yes, I bought a lot of Grab yesterday. So I've been buying this thing. I got the 580s yesterday. I will buy more if they give me the 580s again. But this 580 to 6 range to me is not too hard to buy more Grab. I watched Wall Street. I've seen this with Michael Douglas. Yeah, Michael Douglas. Charlie Sheen was in this, right? If I'm not wrong. Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this a couple times actually. So Wall Street is. The remake in 2010 sucked. I saw the remake too. That one actually legit sucked. But the original Wall Street, 1987, that was a good one. After the recent rally, what to expect from Tesla after the news today? Look, I think the news on Tesla again was super bullish. These numbers were good numbers. The problem is it's classic Tesla. It was baked in. And although it got a little bit of a surge for like 4 minutes, unfortunately, that's just not enough. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Q3 is going to be good, but the stock's up from 330 to 450. So does it have to keep moving higher? No. Does it have to sell off? No, I don't think so. 550 call options for November, $30 million of premium we saw last week flow into those. So the trend, at least in the options market, is a bit more bullish towards Tesla. Also, someone yesterday bought $40 million worth of calls on Nvidia. So you got a lot of bullish spike on Nvidia and Tesla. Now we just got to see if those stocks can match that excitement. But I also wouldn't be that upset. I mean, if you held on to Tesla all year, if you DCA'd, like, you can't be that mad that it's down from 470 to 450. In fact, I think a lot of Tesla people didn't even expect for it to cross 400 as easily and then bust through it. But the Elon compensation package and the Elon $1 billion buy really helped put it over. And now it's kind of consolidating at these levels. Have you seen Trading Places? No, I have not seen. I think Steve told me to watch Trading Places before, but I have not seen that. What else? What else do we have? I think that's pretty much it. Most of the headlines. Okay, Roger, I'm just seeing your super chat. In T-10, we're about to hit the classic. Have you seen Animal House moment? Mike, go ahead and ask him. We have to. Every guest we have on the show, we have to ask them their favorite movie, dude. We have to be able to bond over movies. Got to happen in some way. Natty, thank you for becoming a channel member. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Jenny Starr, thank you for becoming a channel member. Harry Wild, thank you for being here and becoming a channel member as well. And then Jen, thank you for the $20 super chat. Would love to hear your review of Tenet. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but it is a Nolan film, so it should be on the list. And I would give a review after I've seen it, but I have not seen that yet. Margin Call, I just never loved Margin Call. I never loved it. I watched it a while ago. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I never loved it, but it is what it is. Wolf of Wall Street and The Big Short are a little bit more of my favorites. Let's hear from Dan Niles. I mean, let's see if he's a little bit more bullish or bearish on some of the stock market action we've seen since the government has been shut down.
See you too, Carl.
Sounds like you think this one shutdown, could last longer than the one in 18.
Yeah, but it really doesn't matter, Carl. You go back and you look at the one in 18, and during the entire tenure of that shutdown, as I wrote about, the S&P was up 10%. So I think everybody knows this is going to get ultimately resolved. I don't think there's anybody who thinks the government's too small. And so I think people are going to go and focus on more important things to some degree, and I hate to put it like that, but they're going to focus on Q3 earnings that are about to start to get reported soon. They're going to focus on what's going on with the AI trade, and then they're going to focus on the most important, arguably, unfortunately, which is rate cuts, which has been kind of the stimulus, you could argue, since COVID, and if you want to go all the way back, since Lehman. And you're going to get a rate cut on October 29th, and another one probably on December 10th, and that's just going to keep this irrational exuberance alive until the rate cuts stop, at which point we'll have to deal with reality again. But right now, enjoy the ride. I think it's going to be great.
But you call it irrational.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, because think about it this way, right? We have a history of this. In the late 1990s, every internet company was going to win. Now, think about where we are today. How many have won in search? You got one. You got Google. How many won in social media? You really only have one. You got Meta. How many's won in e-commerce? You got one. That's Amazon. And you have a bunch of smaller players, obviously. Now, if you look at the AI space, people think everybody's going to win. Everybody's going to be worth $1 trillion. And that's ultimately going to coalesce down to a few players. But in the near term, when you've got rate cuts, when you've got animal spirits, people want to believe. And if you go back to the late 90s, NASDAQ was up 86% in 1999. To start the next year in 2000, the S&P declined 5%, but the NASDAQ was up another 24% in the first, 2 months and change of 2000. So right now, people want to believe. There's no problem with these circular investments that you see happening, or not everybody putting up great numbers. And
I think we're all used to Dan bringing up the dot-com bubble comparison every time. And look, you can make the comparison, but there are some major differences. And I don't know, multiples in and of themselves are at 30 times right now versus 60 times. So it is a comparison that people make. I just don't know if it's going to play out the way the comparison suggests that it could play out.
AI, but until people start to deal with that, the market, much like in late 1999 to 2000, I think keeps going higher, fueled by rate cuts.
So, Dan, do you think the rate cuts, the ones we're likely to get, are purely just sweeteners, or are they necessary to keep the economy from buckling a little bit here? And what are the implications of that if we don't, quote, need them?
I don't think you need them, but our job isn't to try to figure out what should be happening. It's to
I'm not sure if he's right about that, dude. Labor market's not pretty. All these experts that are saying we don't need rate cuts, and they're looking at the stock market doing well without rate cuts, that's fine. But like the actual labor market, we know objectively is not doing well. So when they talk about you don't need rate cuts, forget about the broader markets. Just like Main Street needs a relief on rates, which would ultimately help stimulate the economy.
Figure out what you think will happen. So the analogy I would draw is I remember being on your program back in 2021 saying, how the heck is the Fed thinking this is transitory? But they did. They didn't raise. And the S&P finished the year up 27%. Now, obviously, 2022 is a different story when they finally figured out maybe the worst inflation in 40 years isn't transitory. And they started to raise in the most aggressive manner possible. So right now, it's hard to argue you need these extra rate cuts when you've got GDP growing at 3%. You've got inflation that's been above target for 4 years. But none of the reality matters, unfortunately, which is the Fed saying this is transitory as well. And so,
but see, I don't think the Fed is explicitly saying that the only reason they're cutting rates is because of the transitory levels of inflation. That is one component to their analysis. I think the bigger argument, and this is not even me thinking, this is me just repeating what Jay Powell and Goolsbee and a lot of these guys have said, is that they are genuinely worried about the labor market. We're in a low fire, low hire market. College grads are not getting jobs the way they got 4 years ago. S&P 500 just going red right now. And the risk of AI being very deflationary because people are going to lose their jobs as AI commoditizes the skill set needed for those jobs is massive, which is also, I don't think Jay Powell's explicitly said AI could be deflationary, therefore we're not worried about inflation. He's more so talked about how tariffs are not going to have a massive price change. It's going to be a one-time thing. But I do think whoever the next Fed chair is going to be, they're going to be tasked with over the next 6 years trying to recognize the ramifications on inflation via the cost of goods simply coming down or demand coming down because of the job loss in the labor market due to AI. And as a result, you probably want to lower rates before that economic reality becomes real. And that is the reason to lower rates versus, artificially stimulate the economy. As a result, I think we get more rate cuts. And you guys heard what Mike said, 20 minutes ago. Whether or not you believe rate cuts are good for the broader economy, risk on assets are going to catch a bid. Money needs to go somewhere when rates go down. And Bitcoin, Ethereum, the leverage plays on those assets like a BMNR, MSTR, they likely get some momentum because of that. So there we go. All right, folks. I think that is it for me today. We'll be back on the market close. We'll get some money market inflows. Chris will be on at around 4:20. We'll get a bunch of macro thoughts with Chris. Some of you guys asked for a little bit of help in explaining call debit spreads. So we'll talk about that with Chris as well today and get some more perspectives on that. Amit, it's Alex Karp's birthday today. Is it? He's in October. He has an October birthday. When is Alex Karp's birthday? Wow, he's an October birthday. we share more than just the initials. He's an October birthday. I didn't know that. All right, well, happy birthday to, well, quite frankly, the guy who changed my life, CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp. I did not know that. Did you guys know he had an October? I did not know he had an October birthday. He's turning 58 today. 58. Happy birthday to Mr. Karp. Dude, I was thinking about Palantir 2 days ago on September 30th when the 5-year anniversary of the GPO came out. We didn't talk about it too much on the channel, but it's just kind of been wild, bro. It's a bit emotional for me. 5 years of covering the company and just seeing what they've done, seeing how they've, changed. And really, I got a couple texts from some people that are in the community that showed up to the Miami meetup. Shout out to Audrey if she's watching. She's been, covering the journey, been part of the journey for 5 years. And so it's wild, bro. One thing can just change your life. Never in my life did I think I would get interested in a stock and that stock would lead me to make content and that content would create a community and that community would then be the foundation for launching a financial content creation media brand. Never. Like, dude, I thought I was going to be a meteorologist when I was in middle school. I thought I would be an astronaut when I was in elementary school. And then when I was in high school, I thought I would be a singer. That didn't work out, but did not think it would play out like this. But sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes stuff just happens and it changes your life. So very, very grateful for Palantir, for the whole community. And very happy birthday to Dr. Alex Karp. NVIDIA right there, that's up about 1.4%. Palantir 185. Robin trying to get back to 143, 142.79. And then you got the S&P flat on the day. Did you really think Singer? Yes, I really did. I really did. It didn't work out. Word of the day. Word of the day. What do we got? Untoward. I've never heard of this word before. Untoward.
Untoward.
Untoward. Unfavorable or unfortunate. Okay. Untoward. Unfavorable or unfortunate. I don't know who would say this word versus just say unfortunate or unfavorable. But that is your word of the day. Glad you didn't want to be a comic. Dude, I had a book when I was going through my comedian phase. I had a comedian phase. I think I still have, it was a notebook where I was writing up what a 30-minute set would look like. I got to go find it, but there were some decent jokes in there. Now, no one can confirm they were decent, but myself, I was laughing at them when I was rehearsing them to myself. I never actually did an open mic though. Maybe one day. But now I get to be a comedian every morning, 2 times a day. So we get to do it from that perspective, even if we can't be a comedian. Duncan, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate you, Duncan. Thank you for being here. And thank you for becoming a channel member. All right, I think that's it for me. I'll be back on the close. We'll see what we've got going on. I would not be surprised if the market takes a little bit of a dip. We have had a really good 3 months. We've had a great start to October. I know it's only been 2 days. Robin it back above 143. And then Palantir right there, 185. But if we take a breather, S&P going red, it is what it is, right? It's not that crazy. And eventually this government shutdown news will have to be factored in, either up or down, but hopefully we'll get a resolution on that before we figure out what impact it has on the market. So there we go. All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, we'll be back on the market close. Chris will be on as well later today. We'll get some macro updates. We'll definitely talk BM&R. I know people have a lot more thoughts on that, and Chris is heavy in that one, so we'll get into it. And we'll get those money market inflows. Again, so next week, the daily recaps are coming back, starting on Tuesday, most likely. That's like a 15-minute summary of what happened in the stock market every day. Probably just going to be me in this background yapping about the market. So for those that can't watch the open or the close, that'll be up every day. And then the deep dives, I think I have the Substack link. Let me see if I can give it to you guys right now. I will start that October 15th. I will start that October 15th, and it'll be launched with the first article. Yeah, I think this is the link. And I have a lot of companies in mind. Videos will happen based on those articles. Again, the Substack will be free. It will never have a paywall, but the goal of it is to really challenge me to analyze a company intensely, to just become a better market participant. And I think doing it through like a long form writing of a Substack is, I think, one of the best ways to do this. So, all right, here it is. amidstdeepdives.com.substack.com. There it is. Excuse the innovative name, but Amidst Deep Dive, we'll think of a better name later. amidstdeepdives.substack.com. So if you have any recommendations for deep dives, let me know. I have a list already. I know we got a lot of people here that have ideas. I'm going to try to dedicate 2 per month. So 1 every 15 days. I don't want to spend more than 15 days analyzing a company. At that point, I think I'm overthinking it. So I think in 15 days, at least for a surface level deep dive to go and present something, if we really want to go deep, we're probably going to take, a few months to like, well, it depends, right? Like with Grab, I spent about 2 months before I made a position. So usually I tend to take about a month or 2, but with some of these, if we can get all the info in 2 weeks, then maybe we can even make a decision on if it's worth investing. But yeah, we'll do that. And probably October 15th, the first one will launch. And then we'll keep it going from there. Jose, what's up, bro? Jose, we'll get Jose on tomorrow. Jose, Nvidia, all time. Jose's got to have a happy morning today. Nvidia trying to crack 190 again for like the 7th time today, 189.70. So we'll get Jose on tomorrow morning and get his thoughts on Nvidia as well. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I will see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.